You're welcome.
Hello, folks. Welcome to another fun at-home table read tonight. Well, we're tackling certainly an interesting unmade script from Chris Columbus. That's right, the Home Alone guy. We have a script for for Indiana Jones 4. We have a couple different titles for this. It was either Indiana Jones and the Monkey King or Indiana Jones and the Garden of Life. Either way, I can't wait to see this one. I love Indiana Jones. So let's just start introducing ourselves.
Hello, I'm Mary. I will be action description for the first half, and then Kezure, I think it's pronounced, for the second half.
Hello, I'm George, and I'll be doing act description for the second half.
I'm Logan, and I'm going to be reading Indiana.
Hi, I'm Johnny. I'll be reading MacGowan.
Hi, I'm Erik. I'll be reading the role of Baron Seagrove.
Hi, I'm Bridget, and I'll be reading for Marcus Brody.
Hello, I'm Curtis, and reading the part of Scraggy.
Hi, I'm Anne, and I will be reading the part of Gutterbuhg.
Hi, I'm Angi. I'm reading Clare.
Hi, I'm Rudy, and I'm going to be reading for Sun Wung Kang. And I'm also going to be reading for another important character, but I don't want to spoil that.
Yes, I get exactly why. All right, well, on that note, Mary, take us away.
Indiana Jones 4, aka Indiana Jones and the Monkey King, aka Indiana Jones and the Garden of Life, a screenplay by Chris Columbus. Underwater, close up, a brightly colored fly attached to a dangling fishing line. A large salmon swims to the fly. The salmon examines the fly, deciding whether or not to bite. Camera pans upward, tracking the line and moving out of the water. We pass the crooked boards of a small rowboat and continue to pan upward. A man reclines in the boat, napping. His hands gently grip a wooden fishing pole. He is handsomely dressed in sportsman's trousers and a blazer. His green lower space. Its brim is filled with various types of tackle, and fog has begun to settle over the entire area. Title, Scotland, 1937. Suddenly, the man's fishing line becomes taut. The wooden pole buckles. The man stirs. He sits up, moving the hat from his face. Camera dollies forward into a close-up of the man. It's Indiana Jones. His face, anxious, hopeful. Indy begins to reel in his catch. A voice interrupts in the distance.
Dr. Jones! Dr. Jones!
Indy turns to the direction of the sound, still struggling with the line. Indiana's point of view, countless orange flames sparkling across the moors. The torches are being carried by several members of a small village. The villages are gathered behind a group of 6 policemen. The policemen are headed by Instructor Angus MacGowan, a plump, balding fellow with a veiny, bulbous nose, beady green eyes, and thick, curled red mustache. MacGowan shouts to Indy.
We need your assistance.
Come on, Max, the first bite I've had all week.
Please, it's very important.
Indiana struggles a bit longer with the line, but his conscience prevails and Indy drops the fishing pole. With a grumble, he rows back to shore. The moors, several minutes later. Night has fallen. It is very dark. A reluctant Indiana Jones has joined the inspector and the other policemen. They lead the townspeople along the foggy moors. Slowly, carefully, the villagers search, creeping, their faces tense, many unable to hide their fear. A summer wind sends an eerie howl whistling through the night air. Blue moonlight bathes the moors, creating stark, frightening shadows. An expression of anger and annoyance covers Indiana's face. He grumbles to MacGowan.
Do you value our friendship, Mac?
More than me nightly pint.
It's better not be some wild goose chase.
Tain't wild goose chase. We're after Dr. Jones. Got me word on that. And MacGowan's word is truer than an angel's kiss.
There is a sudden scream. One of the villagers stumbles upon something. Everyone gathers around the villager. A corpse lies before them. The body has somewhat rubbery appearance. as if all of its bones have been broken. The man's pale greenish face is frozen in a hideous grimace. Indiana and MacGowan stare in shock. The villagers whisper amongst themselves.
Scotty Ferguson!
He's died.
Just like the others. All his bones busted, crushed.
Whatever's killing people around here ain't human.
It's there again.
The woman shoots forward. The woman and the townspeople were right behind her. A curious Indiana follows. The woman stops in a clearing. She is pointing ahead. The villagers surround her. They stare ahead in the direction where the woman points. Nearly a mile in the distance, we see an ancient Scottish castle, an enormous 16th century stone structure, tall, foreboding towers lined with menacing gargoyles pierce the night sky. The castle appears deserted. Its interior is completely dark, save for a small flickering candlelight. It burns from the castle's upright windows. Indiana gives a questioning look to MacGowan. The inspector points to the castle's upstairs window.
That light, it burns only after a murder's been committed.
Let's go.
The villagers step back, eyes widen with fear. Murmurs of, "Ain't going in there, nor I. Got me a wife and kids," are heard from terrified villagers. Indiana turns to MacGowan. Even the usual sturdy inspector is trembling. But MacGowan turns to his men, forcing himself to be strong.
Well, what we're doing here for men? Hennesey, Galbraith, Bottomley. You're coming with us.
As each man is called, the color leaves his face. The chosen policemen reluctantly join the inspector and Indiana as they begin walking towards the castle. The remaining villagers and policemen stay behind, waiting. The elderly woman kisses the crucifix that hangs from her neck. She stares at the departing men.
May God help them.
Cut to the castle doors. Two enormous wooden doors covered with intricate carvings of demons, serpents, and gargoyles adorn the castle entrance. Indiana and the police stand before the doors. Indy glances to the upstairs window. The candle still flickers. A long wooden bar carved into the shape of a serpent is fastened through the metal door latches. It blocks the castle entrance. Indy and the policeman grab hold of the bar. It is extremely heavy. Using all of their strength, they manage to slide the bar out of the door latches. It hits the ground with a thud, rolls down the castle stairs. Indiana clutches the rusty metal door handles. He pulls hard. The door creak, groan, and slowly open. A thick cloud of dust explodes from the inside of the castle. It blows out all of the torches. Behind the open doors, there's only total darkness. Indiana enters, holding the flashlight before him. The policemen exchange frightened glances. Inspector MacGowan shoves them through the open doors. Interior castle. Indy's flashlight beam glazes over the castle's interior. It is a stone palace filled with elaborate antique furnishings, macabre sculptures, and old paintings. This place is bathed in dust. Thick cobwebs fill each corner, and it's extremely cold. The men's breaths are visible. Hennesey rubs his folded arms.
It's deathly cold in here. How could a human being survive?
Hearing this, the other policemen exchange terrified glances. Indiana shines his flashlight to a twisting stone staircase. The staircase spirals upward along a far wall leading to the second floor. A faint glimmer of light emanates from the top of the stairs. Indiana moves forward. The policemen follow. Indiana ascends the stairs slowly, silently, towards the light. MacGowan and the others are directly behind Indy. As he makes his way to the top, Indiana examines the bizarre oil paintings that line the wall. There are various portraits and landscapes depicting everything from military battles to Sunday picnics. But the unsettling quality of the pictures is that they each feature the same white-haired elderly man. Indy comments to Mac.
This guy's got one hell of an ego.
They're in Seamus Seagrove. Some say he walks the moors every night. Others claim he's been dead for years.
Indy arrives at the top of the stairs. His hand rests on a sculpture that is a part of the banister. The sculpture is a bust of Baron Seagrove. Indiana makes his way to the first doorway where the light emanates. The door is wide open. A thick cobweb covers the entrance. Indy wipes away the web and enters the room. The policemen draw their pistols. They follow. Interior room, a bedroom, deserted except for a few pieces of elaborate ancient furniture and a large canopy bed. Everything in the room is caked with dust and cobwebs, save for the burning candle. It rests on the windowsill and a sparkling sterling silver holder. It bathes the room in orange light. Indiana walks towards the candle, arm outstretched. He prepares to lift it. The policemen watch, shivering, silent, tightly gripping their pistols. Indy's fingers are inches from the candlestick. Suddenly, there's a loud whoosh. The candle goes out. Indiana drops his flashlight. There is total darkness. We hear the distant, maniacal laugh of a man. It echoes through the castle. Indy retrieves the flashlight, clicking it back on. The candle has disappeared. The laugh has subsided. MacGowan looks at his men. A troubled look covers the inspector's face. MacGowan's eyes dart about the room. Hennesey is gone.
Hennesey! Hennesey!
I was standing right here just a second ago, standing right beside me.
The sound of a bell, dong, a thick, dull ringing in the distance. It sends a chill through the men. Indiana darts out of the room. Following the sound, the policemen are right behind him. Interior castle. Indy and the police hurry down the stairs. The ringing bell continues. MacGowan is calling for Hennesey, and he dashes the door along the far wall. He opens it. It leads into the dark basement. The sound of the ringing bell echoes from inside. Indiana enters, motioning for the others to follow. Interior basement. A decrepit, narrow wooden stairway leads into the basement. Indy holds tight to his flashlight. The policemen are clustered behind him, taking each step with extreme caution. The boards creak and groan and with their every move. MacGowan leans to his side, calling for Hennesey. MacGowan's weight causes the rotten banister to snap in two. He loses his footing, falling off the side of the stairs. Indiana's arm shoots out, grabbing hold of MacGowan's collar. Indy pulls MacGowan back to safety. MacGowan catches his breath, shaking.
Thanks for catching me.
Rather be catching trout.
They continue down the stairs, arriving at the bottom. It's a large, musty stone basement. The slimy walls are covered with green moss. There are several doors along the basement wall. The sound of the ringing bell is much louder down here. Indiana moves to the first door. He reaches for the handle. The policemen draw their pistols. Indy opens the door. A large object shoots out from inside, rolling towards the men. The policemen fire their guns. Several shots ring out. Bang, bang, bang. The objects come to a stop. A deep red liquid pours out onto the floor. Indy dips his finger into the liquid. He tastes. Bad choice.
Interesting blood type.
Didn't your mother teach you not to drink strange things? The policeman stares, wide-eyed, and he smiles.
Cabernet Sauvignon, 1897.
Indy's flashlight beam shines ahead, illuminating the mysterious object. A wine barrel. And inside the room, it is a deserted wine cellar. Suddenly, a loud creak echoes through the basement. Galbraith cries out.
Look!
Everyone turns. A large stone door built into the wall slowly opens. Indy and the police stare in amazement. The door stops. wide open. A flickering light glimmers from inside. Indiana walks to the opening. He peers into the opening. The police stay a few steps behind. Behind the door, a family crypt. Stone coffins with glass-covered tops line the crypt walls. Macabre, ghastly religious statues decorate the room. Countless death masks cover the ceiling, all carved with the same frighteningly familiar face. Baron Seagrove. Camera dollies to the far corner of the crypt. It stops on a close-up of the candlestick, the exact candle from upstairs, still burning. It rests on one of the coffin's glass tops. A trembling MacGowan steps back away from the crypt. He blurts an order to his men.
Galbraith, come with me. We'll search for Hennesey. Out there. Bottomley, you go with Dr. Jones. In there.
MacGowan and Galbraith nearly fall over each other as they scramble away from the crypt. The two dash off in the other section of the basement. Indy shakes his head. He enters the crypt. A reluctant and very frightened Bottomley follows. Interior crypt. Indy's flashlight beam dances across the glass coffin tops. Decayed corpses smile from inside, their hands tightly clutching crucifixes. Bottomley is horrified by the sights. Indiana continues ahead. He passes the burning candle, moving further into the darkness of the crypt. The shivering Bottomley stays directly behind Indy. With every step, the bell's ringing grows louder and louder. Indiana and Bottomley arrive in a circular chamber located at the far end of the crypt. Here, the ringing bell is nearly deafening. The sound echoes from above. We are on the floor of the bell tower. Indiana shines his flashlight upward. The beam stops on a ringing bell that hangs several feet in the air. Inside of the bell, dangling by his feet, is the dead body of Hennesey. He has replaced the bell clapper. His body swings back and forth. It slams into the side of the bell, causing the dull ringing. Bottomley screams. Indiana grabs Bottomley's arm.
Let's get out of here.
Indy and Bottomley turn to the crypt door. It begins to close. The two men dash forward, the door continuing to close. Indy and Bottomley are only inches away when the door slams shut. They push and kick at the door. It's no good. It won't budge. A panicked Bottomley calls for help.
Inspector MacGowan! Galbraith, open the door!
Using his flashlight, Indy scans the door, looking for a crack, another way out, anything. Indy nudges Bottomley.
Need more light.
Bottomley hurries to the candle. He reaches out. There's a thud. Whoosh. The candle flame goes out, followed by total darkness. Indy turns from the door.
Bottomley.
No answer. Indy shines his flashlight towards the area. The candle is gone. There is no sight of Bottomley. Indy takes a step forward.
Bottomley.
Again, no answer. Indy sweeps the flashlight beam across the room. It passes one of the coffins, then shoots back. Indy is met with a shocking sight. Bottomley lies inside the coffin, dead, his face twisted in a ghoulish smile, all of the bones broken. His hands are wrapped around a crucifix. Indy stares in horror. There's a sound, footsteps. There's someone else here. Indy's flashlight beam darts around the crypt. There is no sign of anyone.
Who is it?
The same crazed laugh of a man echoes through the crypt. Ha ha ha! A chilled Indy turns back to the door. He's startled to find the crypt door covered with a thick sheet of ice. Indy reaches out. He touches the sparkling green ice. He snaps back his hand. His fingers are burnt. Interior basement. MacGowan and Galbraith are outside of the crypt door. They pull at the door's metal handles, trying to open it, but the door won't move. MacGowan calls through the door.
Dr. Jones, try to push.
Interior crypt. Indy answers, taking a step back.
Can't. Some kind of hot ice covering the...
Indiana suddenly falls. The floor has disappeared from beneath him. Indy manages to grab hold of a stone coffin. His fingers tightly grip the coffin's edge. Indiana looks down. Beneath him is several 100-foot drop into total darkness. Indy tries to pull himself up. The coffin's ancient stone begins to crumble. Large chunks and pieces fall from Indy's grasp. He is losing his grip quickly. Seconds before he plummets into the abyss, Indiana reaches inside the coffin. He clutches onto the corpse's arm. Using the arm, Indy swings downward into abyss. At that precise moment, Indiana releases the dead arm. He lands on the rocky ledge, located only a few feet below the open crypt floor. Indiana stands on the ledge, safe. He smiles, relieved. Suddenly, the ledge snaps. Indiana falls. His body drops hundreds of feet into the blackness. A moment passes, then we hear a splash. Bottom of the hole, a pool of water surrounded by rocky, cavernous walls. Indiana's hat floats on top of the water's surface. Indy pops out of the water, bobbing up beside the hat. Indy reaches for the hat. Suddenly, a fish flaps out of the water. The fish gobbles up one of the hat's live baits and disappears back underwater. Indy smirks.
Now they bite.
Indy attempts to pull himself out of the water. There's a loud sound, grinding metal, rattling chains. Indy's eyes dart to his side. Two horizontal metal gates eject from the cavern walls. They shoot across the water like lightning. They're headed towards each other and Indy's head. Indy dives underwater. The gates snap shut less than an inch above the water's surface. Indy attempts to resurface. The closed gate stops him. He clutches the grating, trying to move the gate. It's too strong. Indy struggles for air. No good. There isn't enough space. He's going to drown. Underwater, in desperation, Indy swims downward, looking for an alternate escape, but there's no bottom in sight. Indy's eyes bulge. His face loses color. Only a few precious seconds of life remain when suddenly he spots something, a small tunnel built into the cavern wall. Indiana hurriedly swims to the tunnel. He bolts inside. A water fountain, a large 3-tiered stone structure. Instead of the familiar carvings of angels and beautiful maidens, this fountain is surrounded with water spewing demons, gargoyles, and hellish beasts. Camera dollies to a large metal drain located inside of the fountain's base. The drain covered begins to turn, suddenly flipping open. Indiana crawls out of the opening. He gulps at the air, color returning to his face. Life turns to his body. Indy raises to his feet. He finds himself standing in the fountain. Indy's point of view, he's inside of a banquet room. A sprawling room is beautifully decorated in Victorian dignity. The room is immaculate. Not one speck of dust. 2 medieval suits of armor adorn one wall. A gargantuan crystal chandelier hangs from above mahogany banquet table. At the far end of the table sits a shriveled, white-haired elderly man. It is Baron Seagrove III, the fellow whose likeness appeared on every piece of artwork. Baron Seagrove is calmly eating his dinner. A bloated roasted pig rests on a silver platter before him. The same candle we saw burning in the upstairs room and the family crypt now rests on the table, directly beside the Baron. 2 powerful, muscular mastiffs are tied to Baron Seagrove's chair. Teeth bared, eyes ablaze. The hounds fight for a scrap of meat. Indy stares in bewilderment at the new surroundings. He steps out of the fountain. Baron Seagrove seems unaware of Indy's presence. Indy walks towards the Baron.
Excuse me, sir. Hello?
Baron Seagrove does not look up from his plate. Indy moves closer. He speaks louder.
You hear me?
Close up. Beneath the table, Baron Seagrove's hand nonchalantly unties the mastiff's bindings. Indiana still walks towards the table. The Baron continues to ignore him. Indy is annoyed.
2 dead policemen upstairs.
The mastiffs leap forward, coming at Indiana. He tries to get away, but too slow. The hounds are upon him, tearing, crawling, clawing, biting. They drag Indy to the floor. Baron Seagrove continues just to enjoy his dinner, seemingly oblivious to the scene before him. Indiana fights for his life. The vicious dogs tear at his clothing and skin. Indy spots something on the wall above. Hanging amidst display of stuffed animal heads is a hunter's trumpet. Indy struggles to his knees, trying to reach for the horn, but the dogs are still biting, clawing, weakening Indiana. Indy's fingers are inches from the horn. The massive, sharp claws rip at his arm, but Indy manages to snatch the trumpet. He quickly moves the horn to his lip. He blows hard. A high, piercing note fills the air. The dogs respond to the sound. They halt, stopping their attack for a moment. Tattered and bruised, Indiana leaps to his feet. He drops the horn and he runs. The mastiffs come to their senses. They dart after Indy, mouths foaming. Baron Seagrove continues to dine, still ignoring the action. Indy runs to a velvet curtain. He grabs hold of a long, thick rope that's attached to the curtain. Indiana tears the curtain from the wall. A large stained glass window is behind the curtain. The first mastiff leaps at Indy. Indy quickly drapes the curtain over the hound. Indy ties a large knot in the open curtain end. The dog is trapped. Indy turns. The second mastiff is only a few feet away, barreling towards Indy. Indy hops to the window ledge. He opens the window. The mastiff leaps forward, and Indiana jumps out of the window. Olay. The dog follows Indy, also jumping out of the window. Exterior window. The mastiff falls, flying hundreds of feet into the rocky waters below. The hound's vicious howl fades. Oh, poor puppy. Camera pans from the water and stops on Indiana Jones. Indy has outsmarted the mastiff. He hangs onto the swinging window frame, safe. He leaps back inside the room. Interior banquet room. Baron Seagrove pours himself a glass of wine. A very angry Indiana walks towards the Baron.
Now time's over, mister. You better start talking.
The Baron still ignores Indiana.
There's a lot of strange things happening around here.
A suit of armor, located a few feet away from Indy, suddenly twitches. Its arm lowers. Its head slowly turns. Indiana still walks forward and towards the Baron, who is only concerned with spreading butter on his bread. Indy shouts.
I want some answers. Do you hear me? I want some answers now.
There's a loud creak of metal. A huge, sharp battle axe shoots into frame, swinging towards Indy's head. Indy spins. The axe is only inches from his face. Indy leaps back. Whoosh! The axe slices through the air, just missing Indy. The shaking Indy is shocked to see a glistening black suit of armor. The Black Knight is nearly 7 feet tall and has come to life and is walking towards Indy. The Black Knight is wildly swinging the battle axe. Indiana continues to step back. Unbeknownst to Indy, his steps are leading him towards another suit of armor, also over 7 feet tall. This armor is made of silvery white metal. As Indy moves closer, the White Knight opens its arms. When Indy is within reach, the White Knight locks its powerful arms around Indy's chest. Indy tries to break free, but no good. The White Knight grip is too tight. Indy is trapped. The Black Knight still comes towards Indiana. Its frenzied axe swings back and forth. Indy still struggles with the White Knight's bone-crunching grip. The Black Knight is only a few feet from Indy, its deadly axe blade inches from Indy's face. Indy moves fast. He jerks his body forward. This flips the White Knight off its feet over Indy's head. The White Knight flies into the Black Knight. Crash! This sends both knights falling to the floor. Indiana shoots to his feet. The two knights leap to their feet. They chase Indy. The Black Knight armed with his axe, the White Knight armed with a long, sharp sword. Baron Seagrove spoons another helping of boiled potatoes onto his plate. Indy snatches a shield and sword from a nearby wall display, ready to fight. The knights are upon him. Indiana battles both knights. He defends the bludgeoning battle axe with his shield, and sword fights the other knight. Thrash, clang, the sound of heavy metal fills the room. Indy's sword strikes the White Knight's thick chest. The sword snaps in two. In the confusion, Indy's shield is knocked from his hand by the powerful battle axe. Indy is defenseless. The two metal giants raise their weapons high, aiming for Indy's head. The two knights swing. Indy dives to the floor. The knights can't stop their weapon in time. Crunch! They deliver a hard blow to each other. The woozy knights wobble and spin in a momentary daze. Indy jumps to his feet. The black knight hisses, furious. He dashes after Indy. The white knight is still reeling from the blow. Seeing the black knight in hot pursuit, Indy searches for a weapon. He spots the curtain, long, thick rope lying on the floor. The black knight is nearly upon Indy, axe raised. Indy grabs the rope. He spins, facing the knight. Indy snaps his wrist. A loud crack. The rope shoots forward, not unlike Indiana's familiar whip. Whoosh! The rope wraps itself around the black knight's neck. Indy jerks the whip forward hard. This sends the knight flying through the air. The knight crashes into the stone fountain. Several of the fountain's sculptures shatter into pieces. The dazed, dented black knight attempts to stand, but loses his footing. The knight falls backward into the fountain's wide drain opening. Its heavy armor causes the knight to sink, disappearing into the hole, into the pool of water. Indy catches his breath. The white knight's sword swing into frame, slicing through Indiana's jacket. Indy jumps back. The vicious white knight comes towards him. Indiana turns to run, finding himself at the banquet table, face to face with the roasted pig. A few feet away, Baron Seagrove continues to dine. The white knight raises his sword above Indy. Whoosh! The sword begins to swing down. Indy ducks and dodges the deadly blows. Instead of carving Indiana, the knight's sword manages to slice perfect sections of the roasted pig, bottoms up. The satisfied Baron helps himself to a freshly carved slice of pork. Indiana leaps onto the tabletop, trying to escape the living suit of armor, but the white knight climbs up onto the table, following Indy. The sword-slashing knight pursues Indy along the tabletop. Indy glances upward to the heavy chandelier. Indy smiles. A plan. He continues to step backward, leading the knight directly below the chandelier. At the precise moment, Indy picks up a sterling silver plate from the tabletop. Indy whisks the plate into the air towards the rope that holds the chandelier. The spinning plate severs the rope. The chandelier flies downward, crashing on top of the white knight. The knight lies beneath the chandelier, motionless. The sword drops from its lifeless hand onto the tabletop. Indy takes the knight's sword, eyes on fire, sword outstretched. Indiana walks across the tabletop, headed for Baron Seagrove. The Baron prepares to take another bite of his food. The sword shoots into frame. The tip of the blade rests upon Baron Seagrove's rubbery throat. Indiana snarls.
Yes.
Baron Seagrove finally looks at Indiana. Acknowledgement. The Baron lowers his fork. His face twists into an eerie grin. He begins laughing. It's the same maniacal laugh we heard earlier. Indy responds by blowing out the flame of the mysterious candle. The room's door bursts open. Inspector MacGowan and Galbraith dash inside. They hurry to Baron Seagrove, their pistols aimed at him. Galbraith handcuffs the Baron. MacGowan looks at the bruised, bloodied, and tattered Indiana Jones.
Now you can get back to your fishing, Dr. Jones.
Chance, Mac. My plan is in the morning. Vacation's over. I gotta get back to school.
'Tis a shame to go home empty-handed. Tell you what, my friend, I fancy myself quite the fisherman. Tomorrow I'll go out and catch you a real beauty, eh?
Send it to me, airmail.
Dr. Jones, MacGowan's word is truer than...
Yeah, an angel's kiss, I know.
They exit the room. Exterior castle. The villagers surround the castle. Their bright torches are raised high in the air. Baron Seagrove is led out of the castle by Indiana and the police. The crowd begin to whisper, anxious, excited, as the Baron is led to the police vehicle. He turns and looks at Indy. The Baron speaks in a trembling, raspy voice. His eyes are wild.
No jail can hold me.
A chill rushes through Indiana. The Baron turns, continuing to the police wagon. One of the villagers shouts,
He's done it! Indiana Jones has captured the killer!
The crowd cheers. Yay! Indiana gives a humble nod and a wave. Ah. MacGowan shakes Indy's hand. Indy glances to the police vehicle. Indy's point of view, Baron Seagrove climbs into the back compartment of the police vehicle. Galbraith closes the vehicle doors. The Baron is still visible through the vehicle's windows. He lights a cigarette. It appears that the match flame shines through the Baron's body as if he were a ghost. Indiana turns to the others, eyes wide, shocked, but it is obvious that no one else has seen the apparition. MacGowan notices the pale expression on Indy's face.
What is it, man? You look as if you've seen a screaming banshee.
Indy points back to the police vehicle, but it is already departed. It drives over a far hill, disappearing into the night. Indy sighs, turning back to MacGowan.
It was nothing, Mac.
Camera dollies into Indiana's troubled, uncertain face. The Baron's laugh fills the soundtrack, slowly dissolved to exterior Marshall University a few days later. Early afternoon, a rainy spring day. Students run to the university doors, protecting themselves with textbooks. Interior Indiana Jones's office. Rain splatters the window of the cramped, cluttered room. Crooked stacks of dog-eared textbooks and papers nearly reach the ceiling. The spindly bookshelves are stuffed with various archaeological relics and instruments, animal and bird skeletons, fossils, primitive statues, etc. Sitting at a small wooden desk amidst a mountain of term papers is Indiana Jones. Indy is wearing a brown three-piece suit and circular wire-rimmed glasses. In one hand, he holds a student seat assignment card as he hurriedly reads through the term papers. He ferociously grades each paper. To make matters worse, the office is crowded with students, with countless others pouring out into the hallway. All of the students are anxious to get inside. They are badgering, complaining, and moaning at Indy.
Dr. Jones, I took your class and of all the others. I could have had Professor Niels, Professor Eisenschmidt, Professor...
You promised. You said you'd have him graded by yesterday.
My paper finished yet? Name's Virgil Vector. That's Virgil. Capital V-I-R.
My parents paid good money to send me here. You know how much they shell out for your classes?
He doesn't care about us. He only wants fame and fortune. We're just a bunch of peons to him.
Vector. Capital V-E-K.
Indiana continues to grade the papers, trying to ignore all the verbal assault. Betsy Truffle pushes her way to the front. Betsy's is Indy's student assistant. She's 21 years old with thick, luxurious black hair, bright brown eyes, and a small framed athletic body. Betsy is a tough, brash, a Brooklyn kid. She moves close to Indy, her hair brushing his cheek. Indiana's very tense, continuously working on the term papers.
Hello, and Dr. Jones.
Betsy,
Look at all of those papers.
please.
Want me to come by later? Help you grade?
Be great. Yeah, sure.
Goodbye, and Dr. Jones.
She exits. Indy sighs. Again, the obnoxious students shout.
Did you get the name? Virgil. Capital V-I-R.
Professor Thad Priestley enters, pushing Virgil aside. Priestley is a young, wisecracking, greased-haired aunt acquaintance of Indy's. He shoves a photograph beneath Indy's nose.
Moby Dick. That's what I named him. Captain said it was the biggest fish he ever saw.
Indy glances to the photo. It's a picture of Professor Priestley dressed in fisherman's outfit, standing on a pier holding a giant fish. Indy steams. Priestley gives him a manly slap on the back.
What about you, Jonesy? You were over in Scotland for 2 weeks. Did you catch the big one?
Look, Priestley, I'm real busy.
Indy is suddenly interrupted by a hard slap to his face. He looks up. A beautiful blonde student, Rebecca, stands over his desk. She screams, furious.
Two-timing bastard!
Indiana rubs his jaw, startled. Rebecca continues.
How could you? My own mother! In my own bed! I've had it with you. It's over.
Ouch. Priestley hides his chuckle. Rebecca throws a shirt that obviously belongs to Indiana on the desk and storms out of the room. Indy shakes his head and continues working. The students are still harassing him. A loud voice echoes through the room.
Special delivery, Dr. Indiana Jones.
A burly postman stands in the doorway holding a thick, enormous brown envelope. Indy motions to the postman. The postman tries to make his way through the crowd. Indiana goes back to his grading, but is suddenly interrupted by a loud tapping noise. He looks up. Dean Claude Coventry, a stately, elderly gentleman, wraps a steel ruler on Indiana's desk. The dean is upset, very serious.
Dr. Jones, I've had complaints from several of the students.
The postman interrupts, dropping the heavy envelope onto Indy's desk. The postman shoves a yellow paper in front of Indy.
Sign here.
Indy signs. Dean Coventry continues lecturing.
They feel that you are ignoring them, that you are distracted.
Distracted?
What's this? B plus? That's how you sign your name?
Indy grabs the paper. He signed a B plus on the line where his name is supposed to appear. Whoops. Indy crosses out the grade and signs his name. Professor Coventry still lectures Indiana.
Marshall University is not the place for sloppy behavior.
At that moment, Indy opens the envelope. A large amount of water pours out, saturating the papers on the desk. This is followed by an enormous dead trout. It flops onto Indy's desk. The students exchange startled and nauseous glances. Indiana removes a waterlogged note from the envelope. It reads, "A MacGowan's word is truer than an angel's kiss." Indiana uses a tissue to wipe some of the water from his desk. Dean Coventry shakes a finger at Indy.
I have one final warning for you, Dr. Jones.
A phone rings, interrupting the dean. Indiana quickly answers the phone. A fuming Dean Coventry impatiently waits to finish his threat. Indiana speaks into the receiver.
Yes. Hello, Marcus. Can you hold on? You were saying, sir.
Either you begin concentrating on your...
Yes, Marcus, I'm still here. Just hold on. I'm very sorry, sir.
Concentrating on your teaching duties.
Damn it, Marcus, I'm standing here with the dean. Just now, what is so important? What is? 5 minutes, I'll be right over. But this had better be important, Marcus.
Indiana hangs up. He gives an embarrassed look to the furious, red-faced dean.
You are on probation, Jones. 10 days. If there is no improvement, you will be dismissed.
The dean storms out of the room. Indiana gathers the wet papers. He begins to exit the room, explaining to the students as he makes his way through the crowd.
Look, I promise by tomorrow I'll have all of these graded and dried.
But how will you get rid of the smell? Indiana continues making apologies and excuses. The obnoxious student again shouts at him.
Virgil Vector, capital V-I-R.
F.
Virgil stares at his paper, adorned with a large red F. Indiana exits the room. Interior History Museum, prehistoric room. The large room is filled with skeletons, fossils, and statues dating back to the dawn of man. Indiana, his arms cluttered with the soaking term papers, hurriedly enters the museum with Marcus Brody. Marcus is anxious, excited. He carries a 6mm metal film canister beneath his arm. Indiana is very impatient. His eyes dart to a full-size skeleton of a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Better be important, Marcus. A museum will soon explain my bones. My teaching career is in danger of extinction.
You will not be disappointed, Indiana.
Close up. an ancient painting. The watercolor features an upright, wrinkled face, Sun Wukong, the stone monkey king. But the monkey is not made of stone. He appears to be half human, half monkey. His face is wise. His coal black eyes are penetrating. He wears a lion skin robe and holds a tall, golden hooped staff. Sun Wukong stands amidst a garden of luscious, ripe peace trees. He's surrounded by heavenly glow, a bright ray of light that emanates from an opening in the clouds.
Look familiar?
Camera pulls back. We are inside of the museum boardroom. Marcus holds the tattered painting before Indiana, who sits at a desk still feverishly grading the wet term papers. After he finishes each paper, Indy pins it to the nearby bulletin board for drying. He glances to the painting of Sun Wukong.
Right, Sun Wukong, the stone monkey king. Big deal. It was 10 years ago, Marcus. Jesus, Heller kids get worse grammar.
10 years or 50 years. It will always be in your blood.
He spells repeat with 2 E's.
Think back, Indiana. Remember your desire, your passion.
He gets an A for content. A on form.
Damn it, man! You can't bury those feelings forever.
Indiana finally looks up from the papers. He glances at Marcus, then looks at the painting. Camera dollies into Indiana's face. He becomes very serious, somber. His eyes are empty. Memories of failure fill his head.
2 years. 2 years of my life looking for the remains of that cookie. A piece of his legendary golden hooped rod or some sign of the lost city. 9 men perished in the journey. The rest of us nearly died from starvation or one of many horrible diseases we discovered. We all still came back empty handed.
One mustn't give up so easily, Indiana.
Give up? Marcus spent 13 months in China, another 7 in India.
But none in Africa.
There was no proof, archaeological or anthropological, to indicate that Sun Wukong ever visited Africa.
Until now.
Marcus turns off the room lights.
Hey, my papers.
Marcus starts the projector. A black and white image flickers on the far wall. We see a pygmy standing in what appears to be a grassy area. The pygmy's name is Tiki. He's adorable. A little over 4 feet tall, his body is taut and muscular. His long black hair is shaggy. His eyes are wide and bright, almost childlike. His face is cute, impish, covered with very inquisitive expression. Tiki's energy is boundless. He cannot stop moving. Standing beside Tiki is Dr. Clare Clark, 32 years old, a tall, strikingly beautiful woman. She is communicating with Tiki with sign language.
The woman is Dr. Clare Clark, the famous zoologist. She works in Africa, studying animals in their natural habitat.
That's very interesting, Marcus. Now, if you'll just turn the lights back on.
3 weeks ago, Dr. Clark discovered that cute little fellow, Tiki, a pygmy of an unusual race, unrelated to any known African tribe.
Marcus, the lights.
Dr. Clark believes that Tiki comes from the lost civilization of Sun Wukong.
Indiana pauses. He stands, walking closer to the flickering image, suddenly interested.
What? But how did
Doctor,
how did she arrive at such a preposterous hypothesis?
The pygmy speaks in a language that has no African origins, but bears a strong resemblance to Chinese.
It means nothing. The rivers of Africa have been plagued by various Oriental pirates and scavengers since the 16th century. Not much evidence, Marcus.
There's more. The pygmy was found wearing an ornamental peach stone around his neck, believed to come from Sun Wukong's legendary Garden of Immortal Peaches.
Marcus, there are countless undiscovered African tribes, all with various obscure beliefs and practices. One tribe may wear peach stones, and another may wear banana peels.
Indiana walks back to his papers. Marcus pauses.
There is one final bit of evidence.
Enlighten me.
The pygmy is over 200 years old.
Indiana adjusts his spectacles. He stares at the black and white image. The cute pygmy appears to be in his mid-20s. He walks to the camera, staring into the lens. Tiki examines the camera with curiosity.
That's impossible.
Dr. Clark has done a considerable amount of testing on the pygmy's clothing. His sandals, everything was over 200 years old.
He's probably just wearing his great-grandfather's stuff.
Camera pans back to the projected image. Tiki begins to unscrew the camera lens. The picture goes out of focus. The film runs out. Marcus turns off the projector and flips on the overhead room lights. Indiana gives Marcus a puzzled look.
So what does all this have to do with me?
Dr. Clark wants to mount an expedition to find the lost city of Sun Wukong. She's quite familiar with your reputation. She'd like you to come along.
No chance.
There will be money involved. The museum is willing to fund the expedition.
Sorry, Marcus. I've burned this bridge.
Indiana turns and begins to walk out of the room. Marcus calls him.
Indiana!
Indy turns. He waves the papers at Marcus.
Marcus, please. I've got to finish these.
You've got to finish something much more important. You crossed the threshold over a decade ago, and it's been tearing at your insides ever since. My friend, if there is even one iota of truth in Dr. Clark's findings, then you can lift the veil of mystery that has surrounded this Chinese legend for centuries. You may uncover the secrets to a lost civilization, and possibly to man's never-ending search for immortality.
Indiana stares at the painting of Sun Wukong.
Indiana, can you afford to pass up the single most important adventure of your life?
Indiana has no answer for Marcus. Indy picks up the painting. A thrilled expression slowly covers Indiana's face. His eyes glimmer, filled with long-lost excitement. The soundtrack music soars. Cut to close-up, the stack of term papers. The papers are slightly crumbled, still wet. A drop of water hits the papers. Camera pans upward. Betsy Tuffet. Indy's student assistant sits at the desk grading the papers. She's crying. Her falling tears soak the papers. We are inside of Indiana's apartment later that evening. Indiana stands in the background. He is hurriedly packing his bags. His familiar gun, hat, and whip lie on the bed beside the suitcase. Indy notices that Betsy is crying. He walks to Betsy. Indy puts his arm on Betsy's shoulder, attempting to comfort her. Betsy snaps at Indy.
You can't do this to me!
Come on, Betsy, relax. You're getting them all wet again.
You just can't go away! I mean, Africa is so far away. And, well, I love you, Indy.
Thought we agreed this was supposed to be casual.
You call what happened last night casual?
My dear, a momentary lapse into passion does not a love affair make.
Momentary lapse! So that's all I am to you?
Betsy shoots to her feet, walking off screen.
Betsy, wait!
Always the lover. So romantic. Indiana sighs. His eyes catch one of the term papers. He begins to read, making a few corrections. We see Betsy's hand remove Indiana's whip from the bed. Indiana continues to correct the papers. Suddenly, there's a creaking noise. Indy turns and his face goes white. He runs off screen. One end of Indiana's whip is attached to an overhead lamp. Camera pans down the whip, and the other end has formed into a noose around Betsy's neck. She stands on a wooden chair. She kicks away the chair, suddenly gagging. Indiana grabs Betsy in midair. He takes the noose from her neck and places Betsy on the floor.
What is the matter with you, trying to ruin my whip?
If I can't have you, I don't want to live.
Really, Indy? Indiana tosses the whip into his suitcase. He pulls up the chair and forces Betsy to be seated. He pours her a glass of bourbon.
Drink this. You'll feel better.
Indiana walks to his suitcase, continuing to pack. His back is to Betsy. She raises the glass to her lips. She pauses, reading a message in the bourbon bottle. It reads, "Danger. Contents flammable." Betsy beams an idea. She lifts the bottle over her head and begins to douse her body with the liquid. Indiana is busy folding his clothing. Suddenly, we hear the flick of a matchstick. Indy turns. We see the bourbon-covered Betsy preparing to light her body on fire. Indy dashes forward. He blows out the match moments before it sparks Betsy's clothing. Are you crazy, lady? Indy shakes Betsy by the shoulder.
Betsy, come on, get a hold of yourself. You're young. There's a lot of other guys.
Not like you.
Well, that's true. But there's no reason to stop living. Besides, look, I'm too old for you. By the time you're 75, I'll be disgusting.
Indy turns and finishes his packing. Betsy sighs. She notices an enormous stone African urn. The 150-pound antique sits on top of a section of bookshelves. Meanwhile, Indiana makes certain that his gun is packed. He places the familiar hat on his head and begins to close the suitcase. Close up, the African urn. It's wobbling, shaking, moving closer and closer to the edge of the bookshelves. Camera pans to the floor. Betsy lies here, directly below the trembling urn. Betsy shakes the bookshelf, causing the urn to tilt and shiver. The urn is nearly halfway off the edge. If it falls, the urn will crush Betsy's head. Indiana struggles with closing the tightly packed suitcase. The urn falls, headed straight for Betsy. Indiana suddenly grabs the urn in midair, inches before it strikes Betsy. Indiana rests the urn on the floor. He helps Betsy to her feet. Betsy wraps her arms tightly around Indiana.
Don't leave me, Indy.
Indy picks up his suitcase and tries to walk to the floor, but Betsy's arms are still tightly wrapped around him. Finally, Indy stops. His eyes burn through Betsy.
Look, you're just a flighty kid. 20 minutes after I walk out this door, you'll have a date with a college Romeo. 2 hours from now, you'll be madly in love with him. By tomorrow, you'll forget I ever existed.
Hurt, Betsy removes her arms from Indiana. He gives her a quick kiss to the cheek and hurriedly exits. Betsy glares at the closed door. A tough, angry expression covers her face. Betsy.
Okay. Never underestimate the determination of a Brooklyn girl, Dr. Jones. Never.
And if this movie was ever made, that scene should have been cut. Dissolve 2, long shot, an ocean liner. The silhouette of the ship sails across the water. A beautiful orange sky fills the background. Indiana Jones stands aboard the ship's deck. It's a typical 30s luxury ocean liner filled with vacationing tourists. Indiana stares into the sunrise. His face is a study in concentration and intensity. He anxiously awaits his adventure. Dissolve 2, map of the world. A moving red line traces Indiana's journey across the ocean towards Africa. The red line comes to a stop at Mozambique. I do not know if I pronounced that right. Exterior, central Mozambique. Bitra, a hot, sunny afternoon. Chief port on the coast. Gateway to Zambezi River. Supply ships, sailboats, and rafts line the marina. The docks are crowded with various merchants and sailors unloading their goods. Small shops and restaurants clutter the waterfront. Behind them are rows of one-story, low square homes. Tall, healthy palm trees surround the area. An ocean liner has anchored along the shore. Several passengers exit from the ship. Indiana steps onto the ocean liner's exit ramp. He is unshaven, wearing his traditional leather jacket and hat, and he looks around expecting to meet someone. Indy's point of view of the dock. There's a loud car horn. Crowds of pedestrians leap out of the way. A rusted yellow Model T barrels along the rickety dock. The words taxi is crudely painted on the car's trembling doors. The car's tires are wobbling, loose. Thick black smoke pours from the cracked exhaust pipe. The ancient car rattles and grinds. Upon seeing the car, Indy smiles. At the foot of the ocean liner ramp, a car screeches to a stop. Scraggy Briar. Indy's friend and guide jumps out of the taxi. Scraggy is a rough, unkempt African man, an elderly fellow with the energy and vitality of youth. His snow-white hair and beard are wild, spiked. He wears tattered, dirty clothes, and there are many 2 sizes large for him, his skinny body. Homemade crocodile sandals flop onto his feet. Scraggy suddenly breaks into a wild grin. He spots Indy. Scraggy shoots up the exit ramp, running through the crowd of people. Scraggy stops a few feet in front of Indy. Scraggy waves his arm before him as if he were blessing Indiana. Following this, Scraggy leaps into Indy's arm. Indiana cradles Scraggy like a child. Speaking with a Portuguese accent, Scraggy exclaims,
Indy, at last we are reunited. Oh, Kuchingo, god of friendship, I thank you for granting my wish.
Indy rests Scraggy back onto the ramp. Scraggy moves to assist Indiana with his luggage. Before picking it up, Scraggy raises his arms over the baggage. Again, he blesses the suitcase. Scraggy then picks up the bags. Indy chuckles.
Oh, I see you haven't changed, Scraggy.
Maltmek, god of goodness, say, before body make contact with foreign object, one must cast out bad spirits or
bad spirits will enter your body. Yeah.
Yes, you have excellent memory, Indy.
I should. Last time we saw each other, you made me wear the same clothes for 3 weeks straight.
Never separate body from clothes, or bad spirits will hide in pockets.
In other words, if people never changed their clothes, there'd be no evil in the world.
Exactly.
I miss all your crazy philosophy, Scraggy.
Not so crazy, Indy. These days, there's much evil in the air. I feel it everywhere.
Indy and Scraggy continue to walk down the ramp, moving off screen. Camera pans to a few feet behind them. Camera stops as the screen is filled with a large, blazing red swastika. Camera pans upwards. We see that this is the sleeve of a German soldier. Camera stops in the face of Sergeant Helmut Gutterbuhg, a thin, skeletal Nazi. He resembles the angel of death. Gutterbugh's face is narrow and sunken. His deep-set eyes are frightening light blue. His complexion is pale and motionless. His hair is blonde, stringy. His right arm appears rigid. The rest is stiffly at his side. Gutterbuhg follows Indy and Scraggy through the crowd. The Nazi removes something from his pocket. It's a tiny mechanical item. It resembles a cockroach. We see that it is a mini radio transmitter. Gutterbuhg whispers into it.
Nehmen wir Kontakt auf.
The mechanical roach's eyes blink red. Gutterbuhg gives a chilling smile. Meanwhile, Indiana and Scraggy arrive at the taxi. Scraggy begins to secure Indy's baggage to the roof. Indy opens the rear door of the cab. He begins to climb into the back seat. He is met with a swift kick to the stomach. He falls to the ground, the wind knocked out of him. Scraggy runs to open the door, holding the person inside.
Dr. Clark, why you kick Dr. Jones?
Dr. Clare Clark steps out of the shadows of the car. We recognize her from Marcus's film, but she's even more beautiful in person. She's the same age as Indy. Her hair is bright red. She removes her glasses, revealing sparkling green eyes. She's very prim, very popular, proper, but extremely intelligent and quick-witted. Sounds like me. She's dressed in khaki slacks and shirt. She speaks in a slightly British accent. She hurriedly assists Indiana to his feet.
Dr. Jones, forgive me. I thought I was being attacked by a degenerate sailor.
No, just a degenerate archaeologist.
Claire, we can't hear you in the back.
Your appearance is deceiving.
Likewise.
They exchange a handshake and a smile, immediately attracted to each other.
Indiana Jones! Calling passenger Indiana Jones!
Indiana turns. A ship porter walks through the crowd, pushing a large barrel on a dolly. Indy waves to the porter. The porter stops in front of him.
You have to support the ship.
There must be some mistake. I didn't.
The porter points to a section of the barrel that reads, "Deliver to Dr. Indiana Jones."
That's you, ain't it?
Well, yeah, but
The porter drops the barrel in front of Indiana and hurriedly walks away back to the ship. Sergeant Gutterbuhg continues to spy on Indiana. The Nazi hides a few feet away in the dark alleyway. A puzzled Indiana begins to open the barrel. Scraggy shouts a warning.
Indy, remember, mal to make, God of goodness, before body make contact with foreign object.
Indiana ignores Scraggy and begins to pry open the barrel.
You must cast out bad spirits.
Indiana still ignores Scraggy. He struggles with the barrel top, flirting with Clare.
Can I call you Claire?
Please.
Well, Claire, you've obviously got a lot of notes to compare. Let's get started tonight. Over dinner?
I'd like that very much.
A friend of mine owns a cafe. I'll get us a nice quiet table. No disturbances, just the two of us.
At that moment, the barrel lid flies off. The inside is filled with old brown banana peels. Suddenly, Betsy's head pokes through the peels. Indiana is shocked. Scraggy sighs.
I warn you, Indy, you must always cast out bad spirits.
A dirty, unkept Betsy leaps out of the barrel. She throws her arms around Indy.
My precious.
Your daughter?
My assistant.
His girlfriend.
A child?
It's nothing, really. What the hell are you doing here?
Proving my love for you.
How terribly sordid.
Puppy love, a schoolgirl crush. She'll get over it.
Never. This proves that nothing can come between us. Not an ocean, not two separate continents.
I think I'm going to be ill.
How? I mean, how could you stay alive?
Hey, I'm from Brooklyn.
But we've been sailing for 3 weeks.
Stowed away in the banana barrel. Ate my way to the bottom.
Charming.
Hey, Indy? Who's the babe?
Your intellectual and emotional superior.
Yeah? Well, you're getting on my nerves, Miss...
Dr. Clare Clark.
Betsy Tuffet.
As in Curzon Way?
Listen, sister, you better stay away from Indy.
My dear, he has no interest in me. I've already celebrated my 10th birthday.
Gotta celebrate the gusto. Indiana shoots Claire an angry glance. Indy removes a wad of bills from his pocket and he gives them to Betsy.
All right, look, Betsy, why don't you get back to the boat and this time as a passenger?
Too late, Indy.
Scraggy points towards the ocean liner. The boat is several feet from the shore. It sails back out to sea. Indiana steams.
When's the next one out?
2 weeks.
Indiana grumbles. An amused Dr. Clark gets back into the car. Indy shoves Betsy inside. He is furious. Before Indy gets into the car, Gutterbuhg steps back from the alleyway. He tosses the tiny mechanical cockroach at Indiana. The roach attaches itself to Indy's trouser leg. The tiny transmitter is very light. Indy can feel nothing. He gets into the car. Scraggy blesses the taxi and gets into the driver's seat. Gutterbuhg watches as the battered Model T drives off. The Nazi turns, walking in the opposite direction. The camera follows Gutterbuhg as he enters a seedy waterfront hotel. Interior hotel. Gutterbuhg walks through the dimly lit lobby filled with dusty, tacky African furnishings. He turns a corner into a narrow, decrepit hallway. He stops at the last doorway, room 113. He opens the door with a key and enters. Interior room, a small, musty hotel. It is furnished with a single bed, a sofa, 2 chairs, and a fireplace. 2 bizarre African statues adorn the fireplace mantel. Gutterbuhg carefully locks the room door. He walks to the fireplace. He tilts one of the African statues forward. There's a mechanical creaking sound. Suddenly, the sofa begins to move. It slides a few feet, revealing an opening beneath the floor. A staircase leads into the opening. Gutterbuhg descends into the stairs. Interior opening. Gutterbuhg enters a large, brightly lit room. We are inside of a secret Nazi headquarters. The room is filled with various communication equipment and radio transmitters. Several Nazi soldiers are seated before the equipment, monitoring various radio signals. An enormous glass panel covers one wall. Through the panel, we see 2 speedboats, long, sleek, high-powered mahogany hold. Both speedboats are adorned with a swastika. They float on water in the underground man-made chamber. Directly beside the speedboats, parked on a stone incline, are 2 automobiles. The cars are enormous, beautiful woodies. Equipped with running board and wood panel sides, the cars glisten brand new. Gutterbuhg turns to Klaus, a hulking Nazi who stands in the corner pointing to Klaus's feet. Gutterbuhg shouts an order to Klaus. Camera pans to Klaus's feet. The Nazi's boots is untied. A long string dangles on the floor. The embarrassed Klaus kneels and sloppily reties his shoe. Gutterbuhg turns to a Nazi who sits at a radio receiver. The Nazi wears headphones, listening for a transmission. The long, frightening shadow of man overcomes Gutterbuhg. He turns. Fear covered Gutterbuhg's face. The shadow raises its arm. Heil Hitler! Gutterbuhg also raises his right arm, but a bizarre mechanical squeak is caused by the movement of his arm. Lieutenant Werner von Mephisto stands before Gutterbuhg. Mephisto is a Nazi nightmare. His face is thick and bullish. His bulging eyes are reddish-brown, giving him the appearance of a demon from hell. He has no facial hair, no eyebrows, no eyelashes, completely bald. His body is thick, muscular. He's over 6 feet tall. He glares down at Gutterbuhg.
Were you successful?
Gutterbuhg gives a timid nod. With trembling fingers, he reaches over and turns the volume up of the radio transmission. The voices of Indiana, Betsy, Clare, and Scraggy echo through the tiny speaker. Mephisto manages a pleasant grunt.
Keep a record of everything that is said.
Gutterbuhg nudges the officer before him. The officer hurriedly begins to scrawl a manuscript of the radio transmission. Mephisto nods.
Ever since our battle for the Lost Ark, the Fuhrer has been very interested in the adventures of Indiana Jones. Very interested.
Exterior zoological compound, a miniature zoo. The peaceful compound is surrounded with small man-made lakes and palm trees. There are countless metal cages filled with various animals. The tigers, lions, gorillas, and other violent creatures are kept behind bars. But the llamas, giraffes, deer, and various tame animals are free to roam the compound grounds. Indiana enters with Clare, Betsy, and Scraggy. The persistent Betsy is annoying Indy. She attempts to snuggle closer to him. Indy pushes her away. Betsy tries to hold his hand. Indy shakes her loose. Scraggy watches all of this, giggling to himself. We hear singing. A high-pitched, beautiful voice. Clare walks to the far end of the compound towards the singing. The others follow. Betsy walks by Bonzo, a large chimpanzee. As Betsy passes, the chimp catches a familiar smell. The bananas. Bonzo begins to follow Betsy. Clare opens the door of the large metal cage. Here, the singing is louder. Clare enters the cage. Indiana follows. Scraggy blesses the cage, then enters. Betsy moves to go inside, but Bonzo's large, hairy hand reaches out and grabs Betsy, pulling the girl off the screen. Interior cage. Filled with handmade wooden and bamboo furniture, Tiki, the adorable pygmy from Marcus's film, is inside. Tiki is dressed only in a belted leather loincloth and sandals. He is perched on the floor working on a large tapestry. The tapestry depicts a colorful picture of clouds. The buildings of a large city are reflected on the clouds. Tiki pleasantly sings as he does his work. Upon hearing the cage door open, Tiki looks up. He sees Clare. A joyous smile covers his face. The pygmy runs to Clare, giving her a huge hug and a kiss. Clare introduces Tiki to the other.
Tiki, this is Dr. Jones.
Tiki extends his right hand. He shakes Indiana's hand. Indiana is charmed by the civilized display of friendship. Indy smiles at Clare.
He's a real gentleman.
Just basic manners. What it takes most men a lifetime to learn. Tiki's accomplished in 2 weeks. This is our guide, Scraggy Briar, and Miss
Clare pauses, noticing that Betsy is missing. Claire suddenly breaks into a laugh. She points off screen. Everyone turns. Exterior compound. Bonzo is being extremely affectionate towards Betsy. The chimpanzee pulls and grabs at Betsy. It's all very similar to what Betsy's been doing to Indiana. Betsy wrestles with Bonzo, calling Indy for help. Interior cage. Everyone chuckles at Betsy's dilemma.
It appears that Bonzo is attracted to Miss Tuffet's perfume, Oud Banana Peel.
Tiki has gone back to his artwork. A fascinated Indiana looks over the pygmy's shoulder.
Where'd you find him?
About 10 miles from here, we were on a photographic expedition in the thick of the jungle. I heard sounds, whimpering, moaning. I took a few steps and found Tiki. He was lying in a shallow swamp, semi-conscious, a high fever, nearly dead from exhaustion. He had obviously been traveling on foot for many days, over countless miles. So I brought him back to the compound, nursed him back to health.
Indiana stares at the pygmy. A skeptical look covers his face.
Claire, I hate to quibble with your anthropological abilities.
Quibble.
But if this little fellow is over 200 years old, I mean, what accounts for his youthful appearance, his vitality?
Claire opens a door at the rear of the cage. It leads into another room directly behind the cage. Claire and Indiana enter. Scraggy stays behind. He exchanges a friendly smile with Tiki. Meanwhile, in the background, we see Betsy and the chimpanzee. They roll by on the ground, still wrestling. Close up, Peace Stone. A fruit fly crawls along the peach pit's surface.
Tiki was wearing this when I found him.
Camera pulls back. We're in a small, sterile room. The peach stone rests on a table. Indiana and Claire stand over the stone. Indy picks up the stone, examining it. An annoying fruit fly buzzes around Indy's head. Camera pans down to Indiana's trouser leg. The radio transmitter is still attached to his pants. The tiny bug's eyes blink red. Cut to Sergeant Gutterbuhg. He stands inside of Nazi headquarters, huddled over the radio. The voices of Indiana and Claire echo over the speaker. Gutterbuhg furiously transcribes the conversation.
Dr. Jones, you're obviously familiar with the legend of Sun Wu King's Garden of Immortal Peaches.
Yeah, a bite from the fruit of that peach tree would give a person eternal life. Make him young forever.
The vicious Gutterbuhg smiles. Camera pans to his notebook. Gutterbuhg underlines the word forever young. Cut back to Indiana studying the peach pit. The fruit fly continues to buzz around Indiana's head.
But there's nothing unusual about this. Nothing to indicate that it's from Sun Wukong's garden.
The fruit fly lands on Indiana's neck. Indiana smacks the fly, killing it. A shocked Claire runs to Indiana. She grabs his hand and gently removes what remains of the fruit fly. She glares at Indiana, furious.
This fruit fly had a normal lifespan of 24 hours. As an experiment, the fly was put in the room, alone, with only the peach stone to sustain its existence. The fly stayed alive for 3 weeks. Until now.
She flicks the fly against the wall. Indy gives an embarrassed shrug.
Sorry.
Indiana and Claire are suddenly interrupted by the sound of Scraggy and Tiki's laughter. This is followed by the two of them having a discussion in Tiki's foreign tongue. Claire and Indy exchange a shocked glance and dash out of the room. Interior cage. Scraggy and Tiki are having a conversation. Claire points to Scraggy, giving a puzzled look to Indiana.
He understands him?
Yes, Scraggy knows hundreds of languages. He's the best guide in Africa. Ask Tiki where he came from.
Scraggy nods and asks Tiki. Tiki answers and points to the painting of the clouds. Scraggy translates.
Say, I come from land of city on clouds.
Huh. The hell's that supposed to mean? Can he take us there?
Scraggy asks Tiki. Tiki answers. He and Scraggy laugh hysterically. Scraggy looks at Indiana.
He said if he could, he would go back.
Tiki offers some more information to Scraggy. Scraggy translates.
He say, Pai Chow may help you.
Indiana's eyes widen, startled, amazed. Claire looks at Indy, puzzled.
Pai Chow?
The sacred proverbs and writings of Sun Wukong. His disciples always carried the Pai Cho with them.
Scraggy asks Tiki. The pygmy nods and removes his belt. We see that the thick belt actually unravels into a cloth scroll. Tiki kisses the scroll and gives it to Scraggy. Scraggy nervously opens the scroll. It is filled with countless ancient Chinese writings and proverbs. Indiana stares over Scraggy's shoulder.
Can you translate it?
Scraggy nods. Indiana's eyes anxiously scan the document. He's breathless, excited. The soundtrack music soars. Suddenly, Betsy and the chimpanzee fall into frame on top of the scroll. Bonzo straddles Betsy, trying to move his lips towards her. She's screaming. Oh.
Get him off of me!
Bonzo moves his lips to Betsy and gives her a big kiss. Betsy grimaces. Finally, Claire begins to make bizarre monkey hand motions and sounds. Bonzo turns. He understands Claire. She continues to communicate with the chimp until Bonzo turns and runs out of the cage. Indiana and Scraggy exchange an impressed glance. Betsy wipes the kiss from her lips. Cut to close up a flashing neon sign. It reads, Dashiell's American Bar. It adorns the front of a stylish Mozambique nightclub. Interior Dashiell's bar, dimly lit, smoky, filled with cloth-covered tables and ornamental African furnishings. A 9-piece jazz band plays a swing tunes. A few couples sway on the dance floor. The place is swarming with Nazis. Many are seated at the bar. Others are scattered at various tables throughout the restaurant. Some stand in corners, lurking in the shadows. They're all looking in one direction, watching one man, Indiana Jones. Indiana sits with Scraggy, Claire, and Betsy at the table near the rear of the restaurant. They're eating dinner, but Indy, Scraggy, and Claire are more interested in the stone monkey scrolls. Very nervous, Scraggy translates. Indiana, wearing his spectacles, takes pages and pages of notes, searching for a clue. An interested Claire reads over Indiana's shoulder. Betsy tries to become included in the discussion, but everyone ignores her. Scraggy continues to translate.
Sun Wukong run like fire. He journeyed to many monkey land to build his final empire.
Who's Sun Wukong?
Many monkey land. It's a definite reference to Africa.
Africa? He journeyed to Africa?
That confirms our suspicions that he may have formed a civilization here.
What civilization?
Betsy, keep your trap shut. It doesn't concern you.
Fine. Terrific. Who cares about this stuff anyway? We're in a nightclub. We should be having fun. Come on, Indy, let's dance.
Later.
Ugh, what a bunch of stiffs. Bet you can't dance.
Quite the contrary. I spent several months studying dance.
Oh, yeah? What do you know? The bunny hop? The jitterbug?
The Bomdega, the Kebi Kebi, the Dungamoro.
Huh?
African tribal dances.
Never heard of them.
Of course not. They're beyond the spectrum of your microscopic world.
Insulted, Betsy gobbles down her glass of wine and turns back to Indiana, who's still deeply concentrating in the scrolls. Under the table, Betsy's foot reaches across the floor. It rests on Indy's leg. Betsy begins to rub against Indy's trouser leg. The red-eyed mechanical bug is still attached to Indy's trousers. Indiana glares at Betsy. Claire reaches for her cup of coffee. She notices that the coffee cup trembles slightly. Claire glances beneath the table and sees Betsy rubbing Indiana's leg. Claire is disgusted. Above the table, Claire shoots a scowl of disapproval at Indy. A flustered Indy tries to explain, but is suddenly interrupted by a hand on his shoulder. It's Dashiell, the suave, handsome owner of the restaurant. Dashiell gives a charming smile to everyone at the table.
Enjoying your dinners?
Everyone nods, expressing their thanks. Dashiell leans close to Indiana and whispers,
You watch yourself, sport. Most of the talk here tonight is about you, and it isn't good.
Indiana's eyes dart around the room. He sees the various Nazis watching him. Indiana gives a confident smile. A worried Dashiell continues whispering to Indiana.
I don't know what you've done to the Nazis, but they're certainly no friends of yours.
Cut to exterior zoological compound. Dark, silent. Many of the animals are asleep in their cages. A security guard keeps watch on the compound. He stands outside of the metal gates. There's a sudden sound. The guard turns. The figure of 3 men stand before him in the shadows. The nervous guard places a hand on his holster.
Who's there?
We hear a mechanical creak. A man's leather-gloved hand extends from the shadows. The hand's finger is pointed at the security guard. Close up, various animals. The sound of rapid machine gun fire echoes throughout the camp. Camera records the animals' shocked reactions. The security guard lies on the ground, dead, his body riddled with bullets. The shiny black boots of the 3 men pass his body. We notice that one of the boots' shoelaces are untied. Tiki stares into the dark night. Fear covers his face. He's seated inside of his cage. A candle flickers beside him. Tiki's hand rests on the beautiful tapestry. Tiki listens. He hears footsteps coming towards his cage. Tiki reaches to his side. He grabs a stone dagger. Suddenly, a loud gunshot. The splintered lock from Tiki's cage goes spinning across the floor. The cage door creaks open. Gutterbuhg stands at the door. 2 Nazi soldiers, Helmut and Klaas, who we met earlier, are beside him. Gutterbuhg smiles. His stiff right arm extends from his side. His leather-gloved index finger is pointed ahead. Tiki growls at the Nazis. He stands, raising the stone dagger above his head. Gutterbuhg's finger begins to rapidly fire bullets. His mechanical arm is actually a machine gun. The bullets tear through Tiki's tapestry. They make a crooked, tattered line through the beautiful artwork, destroying it. A terrified Tiki watches. Gutterbuhg stops shooting. He removes the empty cartridge from the slot on his mechanical arm and replaces it with another. He points the deadly finger at Tiki. A trembling Tiki drops the dagger. The 3 Nazis walk towards the helpless pygmy. Cut to interior Dashiell's bar. Indiana, Scraggy, and Clare continue to excitedly study the map. A neglected Betsy pours herself the last of the wine. She is very drunk, singing along with the band's version of Cole Porter's Night and Day. Beneath the table, Betsy continues to rub her foot against Indy's leg. Indiana tries to ignore Betsy's playing. Scraggy continues to translate the scroll.
With his golden hoop rod and his powerful lightning rays, Sun Wukong built Water Curtain Cave, where he lived for 500 days.
The golden hooped rod?
A heavenly staff with many different powers. But most notably, it had the ability to transform itself into hundreds of objects. It remains the most priceless treasure of Sun Wukong's empire.
And what is the Water Curtain Cave?
Sun Wukong's legendary hideout, an enormous secret cave hidden behind a running waterfall.
Claire again reaches for her coffee. The cup and the saucer are still trembling. Claire peeks under the table and sees Betsy's foot rubbing Indiana's leg. Claire gives a revolted grumble. Indiana excitedly explains Scraggy's translation.
This proves that the Water Curtain Cave exists in Africa. Does it mention anything about Sun Wukong's travels?
Only place called Twisted Snake Water.
The Zambesi River. It has a reputation for the deadly water snakes.
It would have been Sun Wukong's logical path.
Will also be our logical path.
Claire smiles. Beneath the table, Betsy's foot continues to rub Indiana's leg. Finally, Indy reaches down, trying to slap Betsy's foot away, but Indy's hand stumbles upon something else, the mechanical bug. Indy tries to remove the bug, but the tiny device won't budge. Above table, Indy's hand is buried beneath the table, struggling to remove the bug. To Claire, it appears as if Indy is playing with Betsy's foot. Claire gives an incredulous look to Indiana.
Please try to control that monstrous libido of yours.
Indiana finally removes the mechanical bug. He lifts it above the table, examining it. Claire is about to ask a question. Indy indicates for her to shh. He covers the bug and whispers to the other.
We have to get back to the compound. Tiki may be in danger.
Indiana, Claire, and Scraggy hurry from the table. A tipsy Betsy follows. Indiana passes the jazz band. He nonchalantly drops the mechanical bug into the trumpet player's horn. The trumpet player hits a piercing high note. Cut to Nazi headquarters. The Nazi wearing the radio headphones emits a loud scream, his eardrums bursting with the trumpet sound. Cut to interior compound. Gutterbuhg, Klaus, and Helmut, I wanted to call him Helmet for a second there, lead the bound and gagged Tiki out of the compound. They keep their lugers at their side. Suddenly, Klaus trips over something. A fawn. Klaus growls. He shouts a German order to Helmut, who grabs a tight hold of the baby deer. No. Klaus aims his luger at the fawn's head. No, not Bambi. Gutterbuhg and Helmut exchange a chilling laugh. Tiki stares in horror. Klaus clicks the luger, ready to shoot. There's an earth-shattering crack. A whip shoots into frame. The whip wraps itself around the luger, tearing the gun. Yay, Bambi's saved. The gun out of Klaus's hand. The fawn breaks free and runs off. The Nazi exchange a shocked glance. They turn and see Indiana Jones. He stands a few feet away, holding the whip. Indiana points to Tiki, angrily shouting to the Nazis.
Get your hands off him.
Gutterbuhg lunges.
I think I laugh.
Laughs. That is a bad typo. Gutterbuhg laughs. He points his finger at Indiana. Indy is puzzled. The finger begins to shoot rapid machine gun fire. Indy dives for cover. Holding Tiki captive, the Nazis turn and begin to run out of the compound. Indy gets to his feet. He lifts the gun, ready to shoot, but the Nazis are running behind several rows of cages filled with animals. Indy can't shoot. He dashes back outside. Exterior zoological compound located on the waterfront. Countless rows of long wooden docks line the marina. The Nazis run below a rotted ancient dock. Here, one of their speedboats awaits. Motor running, Rudolph, a pudgy Nazi, is at the wheel. The Nazis hurriedly climb into the speedboat, pushing Tiki inside with them. Indy runs to Scraggy's Model T. Scraggy sits in the driver's seat. Betsy and Claire sit in the rear. A drunk Betsy still sings night and day. Indy leaps onto the sideboard. He sees the Nazis ahead, climbing into the speedboat. Indy motions for Scraggy to drive fast towards the dock. The Nazi speedboat shoots forward, moving beneath the dock. Scraggy's Model T follows above along the shaky dock. Indiana rides the car's rusted sideboard. He sees the speedboat below through the wide openings in the dock's slated boards. Indy begins to shoot at the Nazis. Gutterbuhg raises his mechanical arms, firing shots back at Indiana. Machine gun fire splinters the dock board, slicing through the Model T. The side mirror is blasted to pieces. The floor beneath Betsy and Claire erupt into flying bullets, just missing the girls. Claire is horrified. Betsy laughs hysterically. The Model T is less than 20 feet from the end of the dock. They continue ahead. The car will plunge several feet into the water, but Scraggy doesn't take his foot off the gas. Gutterbuhg smiles, seeing the vast ocean ahead, knowing he's almost free. As he dodges bullets, Indiana sees the end of the dock ahead. He shouts to Scraggy.
What I tell you, hit the brakes.
Scraggy nods, and the end of the dock is only a few feet ahead. Getting closer. Closer. Claire covers her eyes. Between hiccups, Betsy laughingly sings. Indy looks to the speedboat, back to the approaching dock edge. He pauses, waiting for the right moment. He screams.
Now, Scraggy!
Scraggy's foot slams on the brakes, then suddenly the sudden jolt sends Indy flying into the air. The speedboat shoots out from beneath the dock. Indy lands directly on top of the speedboat, a spectacular stunt. Helmut pushes his gun at Indy. Indy reacts with a swift kick to Helmut's jaw. The Nazi hits the deck, out cold. Klaus comes for Indy. They begin to fight. An angry Gutterbuhg tries to shoot, but Indy and Klaus move too quickly. Gutterbuhg can't get a clear shot. The Model T has come to a stop. Safe. Its front wheels teeter over the dock's edge. Scraggy, Betsy, and Clare get out. Clare catches her breath, knees shaking. Betsy is still laughing.
It's about time we had some fun.
A worried Scraggy sees Indiana fighting with the Nazis.
That's bears have Indy. You're in trouble. Big trouble.
Scraggy runs off screen. The Nazi speedboat is headed towards the side of an enormous ocean liner. Gutterbuhg radios for help. Indiana and Klaus continue to fight, rolling along the deck, exchanging punches. A bound Tiki watches with wide eyes, helpless. The speedboat makes a sudden sharp turn, avoiding a collision with the ocean liner. Indiana and Klaus tumble off the boat into the water. Underwater, Indiana and Klaus continue the battle. They wrestle only a few feet from the ship's large spinning steel propellers. The propellers create a suction force, drawing Indy and Klaus closer towards a spinning death. Indy and Klaus grab hold of a dangling steel anchor, preventing their bodies from being sucked into the propellers. Klaus pulls a switchblade from his pocket. He attacks Indy's clenched fingers with the knife. Indy begins to loose his grip. His body inches towards the propeller. Klaus raises the knife to finish off Indiana, but Klaus' untied shoelace dangles beside the propellers. The shoelace catches a spinning blade. The shocked Nazi is pulled into the propellers. And this is why you always tie your shoes, folks. Indiana turns away, holding tightly to the anchor. A blood-red cloud surges through the surrounding water. Indiana climbs the anchor to safety. Above water, Indiana surfaces, taking a gulp of air. Suddenly, the water in front of him erupts with machine gun fire. Indiana sees Gutterbuhg. He has parked the Nazi speedboat only a few feet away. Gutterbuhg smiles, pointing his finger at the helpless Indiana, a sitting duck. Gutterbuhg smiles.
Good night, Dr. Jones.
There's a loud gunshot. Gutterbugh's mechanical arm is hit by a bullet. Pieces of spring metal and sprockets fly from the wound. Gutterbuhg turns furious. Dashiell, the nightclub owner, is a few feet away. He's driving a sleek speedboat, its side adorned with the American flag. Dashiell points a pistol at Gutterbuhg, ready to take another shot. With a roar, the Nazi speedboat drives away towards a cluster of docks. Indiana climbs into Dashiell's speedboat.
Scraggy said you might be needing some help, sport.
Dashiell hits the gas, tearing after the Nazi. A frenzied high-speed chase begins. Through the darkness, beneath the row of docks, the speedboats face countless obstacles. They swerve around virtual force of wooden poles, which fly by at breakneck speed. The men duck and dodge, dangling fishhooks and net. Many paths are blocked by the wooden rafts and rowboats. Note, because of the darkness, these obstacles appear only when they're a few feet ahead of the speedboats. This makes the chase completely surprising and scary, causing a funhouse effect. Through the chase, Indiana and the Nazis continue to exchange gunfire. A frustrated Gutterbuhg can't shoot, his mechanical machine gun arm rendered useless by Dashiell's bullet. He continues to radio Nazi headquarters for help. Dashiell catches up with the Nazis. The two speedboats travel side by side. Their edges scrape together. Sparks fly. The recovered Helmut aims his Luger at Indiana, but Indy leaps towards the Nazi. The two fall, rolling, tumbling, struggling for the gun. They fight between the two speedboats, the crack below them slightly opening and closing. Up ahead, an enormous stone pole appears. To avoid a collision, the speedboat must separate. Dashiell screams,
"Indy, roll out!"
Indy frees himself from Helmut and rolls back into Dashiell's boat. Helmut looks up. He sees the stone pole ahead coming at him. Helmut tries to move. Too late. The boats separate. Helmut smacks the pole, crushed. Dashiell turns away from the wheel, looking at Indiana.
"You okay, sport?"
Indiana begins to answer, then sees something ahead. He screams,
"Dash!"
Dashiell turns back. The speedboat is heading straight for a solid wooden wall. A sign on the wall reads, Futterman's Fishing Warehouse. A Nazi speedboat has already made a sharp turn, avoiding the warehouse. There's no time for Dashiell to turn, and he hits the deck. The speedboat arches upward at an angle, Crash! The speedboat blasts into the warehouse. Splintering wood splatters through the air. Interior warehouse. Dashiell's speedboat bursts through another wall. The speedboat skids across the warehouse floor, screeching to a stop. A shaken Dashiell gets out, and he runs to the window. Indiana's point of view, the Nazi speedboat shoots out of the docks, escaping across the water. Indiana grabs his whip. He kicks open the warehouse window. He snaps his wrist. Crack! The whip shoots forward, attaching itself to the rear of the Nazi speedboat. Indiana firmly grips his end of the whip. The whip tightens. Whoosh! Indiana is pulled out the window. Gutterbuhg exchanges a victorious laugh with Rudolph, the speedboat driver, thinking they have lost Indiana. The frightened Tiki looks back, his eyes suddenly filled with hope. Gutterbuhg turns, his mouth drops open. Indiana uses his whip to water ski behind the Nazi speedboat. A red-faced Gutterbuhg slams his fist into the dashboard. He removes a sharp knife. He hurriedly begins to slice through Indiana's whip, trying to break the connection. Indiana aims his pistol at Gutterbuhg, but suddenly the shot whizzes by Indy's head, followed by another and another coming from behind. Indy turns. A second Nazi speedboat is in hot pursuit. There are 5 Nazis inside, armed with pistols and rifles, all firing shots at Indiana. Meanwhile, Gutterbuhg's knife continues to slice through Indy's whip. Only a few threads remain. Indiana performs some expert water skiing, swerving, spinning, jumping, all in an attempt to avoid the flying bullets from behind. Suddenly, Indy's whip snaps. Indiana falls underwater, directly in the path of the second Nazi speedboat. Tiki hides his eyes. Gutterbuhg laughs. It appears that Indiana has met a grisly death. The Nazi and the second speedboat are delighted, shaking each other's hands. Cameras pan to below the speedboat. We move underwater. Soundtrack music soars. We see Indiana very much alive. He straddles the bottom of the speeding boat. Holding on with all of his strength, Indiana climbs towards the side of the speedboat, battling the pressure of the rushing water. How? Camera following Indiana out of the water as he climbs aboard the second speedboat. The 4 Nazis are laughing, talking, their backs turned to the approaching Indiana. Moving like lightning, Indy grabs one of the Nazis, tosses him overboard with a swift punch to the stomach and jaw. Indy sends the other Nazi into the water. The other 2 Nazis tackle Indy. They fall onto the deck fighting. Gutterbuhg looks back, shocked that Indy is still alive. Gutterbuhg growls, frustrated. His eyes suddenly light. He spots something ahead. 2 gargantuan ocean liners are moving towards each other, coming together. There's an opening between the 2 ships that continue to get smaller as the ships move closer. Gutterbuhg smiles and an idea. He orders Rudolph to drive through the opening. And the second speedboat, the Nazis have overcome Indiana. One Nazi pins Indy down. The other removes a thick metal chain from his neck. A red swastika dangles from the chain. The Nazi wraps the chain around Indy's neck. He begins to strangle Indiana. Gutterbuhg's speedboat moves towards the ocean liners. The opening between the 2 ships continue to shrink, getting smaller and smaller. The last speedboat is directly behind Gutterbuhg. The Nazis are strangling Indiana. The color begins to leave Indy's face. He gasps for air. The opening between the 2 ocean liners continue to get smaller, less than 10 feet wide. Gutterbuhg's speedboat is only a few feet away. Through his fluttering eyes, Indiana sees Gutterbuhg's speedboat heading for the ocean liners. Indiana is nearly unconscious. The giggling Nazi tightens the chain around his neck. With less than an inch to spare, Gutterbuhg's speedboat squeezes between the 2 ocean liners. The second speedboat is only a few feet from the ocean liners, but as the ships move closer, the opening is nearly closed. The driver can't turn away. He's too close. He emits a scream. The Nazi pause for strangling Indiana. They turn. Indy moves fast. He dives overboard into the water. The speedboat hits the opening. Too small. The speedboat is crushed between the 2 ocean liners. The Nazi let out their final screams, followed by a fiery explosion. Flaming pieces of the wreckage are splattered throughout the night sky. Gutterbuhg turns. He grinning, sadistic, face lit by the explosion. Tiki's eyes are filled with fear. Several feet away, Indiana Jones surfaces, alive. He swims to the nearby shore and climbs out of the water. He rubs his reddened neck, catches his breath, and looks into the distance. And he sees Gutterbuhg's speedboat, too far to catch. Gutterbuhg sees the silhouette of Indy standing on the distant shore. Gutterbuhg orders the driver to move faster. The engine roars. Gutterbuhg looks back to Indy. The Nazi emits a maniacal laugh that pierces the air. Indiana watches the speedboat escape into the night, his eyes filled with rage, vengeance. Clare, Scraggy, and the very drunk Betsy join Indy on the shore. Betsy puts her arms around Indiana. She rests her head on his shoulder. She closes her eyes and emits a drunken sigh.
What a romantic night.
An annoyed Indy pushes Betsy away. In a drunken stupor, Betsy moves to the next person, Clare. Thinking she's still with Indiana, Betsy puts her arms around Clare. Worried Clare is too concerned with the departing Nazi speedboat, Clare turns to Indy.
They hurt Tiki?
They know he's important to us. They'll use him to bargain for this.
Eyes closed, resting her head on Clare's shoulder, Betsy sighs.
Indy, you smell so good. So masculine.
Clare pushes Betsy away. Betsy spins and wraps her arms around Scraggy. Clare watches the Nazi speedboat disappear into the night.
Will they be following us?
Every step of the way.
Betsy, still thinking she's snuggling with Indiana, rubs her face against Scraggy's bristly beard.
Indy, I love it when you don't shave. It's so sexy.
Scraggy pushes Betsy away. She spins, this time putting her arms around a hanging fisherman's net filled with fish. Meanwhile, Scraggy looks at Indiana and Clare.
Undula got a purity say. Always stay 10 paces ahead of bad spirit.
Exactly. We can't let the Nazis get to the city first. If they do, they'll wipe out one of the greatest archaeological finds in history.
Indiana turns and walks away. Clare and Scraggy hurriedly follow. There's no time to lose. The drunken Betsy continues to embrace the net of dead fish. Betsy turns, closed eyes. She smiles.
How about a little goodnight kiss?
Betsy kisses the lips of a dead fish. She smiles, impressed.
Indy, you really know the way to a girl's heart.
Betsy opens her eyes, face to face with the dead fish. Betsy screams and runs towards the departing Indiana, Clare, and Scraggy.
Exterior, Zambezi River the following day, early morning. The sparkling waters of the Zambezi are lined by thick jungle. Sounds of screeching gibbons, exotic birds, chattering insects, and various other wildlife echo from the jungle. Bright rays of hot sunlight sprinkle through the leaves of the towering palm trees. A 55-foot tattered wooden riverboat, the Adobo, travels along the Zambezi. The boat is filled with various crates and barrels of supplies, and there are several men, crew members, all natives of Mozambique. They are a motley crew, all armed with swords and daggers. They are dirty, tattered, unkempt. The boat pulls a long wooden raft behind it. Scraggy's Model T is attached to the raft. One of the crew members, a young man, sits on the raft. He strums a beaten guitar, singing a folk song. Indiana stands at the ship's steering wheel, forehead covered with sweat. He guides the ship along the twisting waters. Clare exits from her cabin carrying a stenographer's notebook. She looks radiant. Her red hair shimmers in the morning sun. Clare walks up beside him. She crinkles her nose.
What's that awful aroma?
Scraggy's taking a shower.
Indy points off screen. Scraggy, fully clothed, stands here. He rubs a large, fresh onion over his face, arms, and legs, squeezing the onion juice over his body. Indiana explains to a befuddled Clare.
See, he believes that onions keep bad spirits from entering his body.
In all my years of anthropology, I've never run across anyone or anything quite like Scraggy.
Yeah, he's a rare breed. You're looking very lovely.
You're looking very lecherous.
Just trying to be friendly.
Save it for the schoolgirls.
Look, Claire, Betsy's just an anxious archaeology student. She admires my work. And who can blame her? But it's just some kind of hero worship thing.
There was never any romance.
I dreamed about our first night together.
Indy sighs. Claire disgustingly shakes her head. She continues to scrawl more into her notebook. Indiana gives her a startled look.
You're writing this down?
I'm keeping an accurate record of our journey.
What's that got to do with my personal life?
Evidence. I plan on testifying at your child molestation trial.
Indiana shakes his head, staring into the distance. He sighs.
Why do I do this to myself?
Holding her head in pain, Betsy turns to Clare.
Hey, lady, you're supposed to be a doctor. You got any cures for a hangover?
The best I've heard was used by a New Zealand tribe. 1 part crushed owl skull, 2 parts rhino saliva, 1 part zebra dandruff.
Betsy's face becomes pale. Indy interrupts.
No. Get a cup of donkey sweat and 2 spoons of skunk hair and 1 pint of shredded lizard tongue.
Betsy turns a light shade of green. Scraggy argues.
I always use family cure. 2 spoons to chop leeches, half cup horse mucus, 2 quarts of crocodile urine.
Excuse me.
Betsy runs off screen. The others exchange a shrug. Scraggy looks at the river ahead.
How far we travel, Indy?
Almost 20 miles.
Any sign of the Nazis?
As long as we keep up this pace, they'll have trouble tracking us.
Camera pans from the hopeful faces of Indiana, Scraggy, and Clare to the cabin behind them. Here, a crew member hides in the shadows, his face hidden. He holds a small radio receiver. He whispers into the receiver, speaking in perfect German. Cut to Gutterbuhg. He is seated in Nazi headquarters. He repairs his detached machine gun arm, which sits on the table before him. Behind Gutterbuhg, a group of Nazis listen to the radio transmission on Scraggy's treacherous crew member. He discloses the location of the riverboat. The Nazis chart out the boat's exact location on a large wall map. Lieutenant Mephisto supervises the project. Tyche, bound, gagged, and bruised, watches from a corner. Mephisto looks at all the Nazis.
We must leave immediately.
Resolve 2, Night in the Jungle. Various shots of exotic animals. A creeping panther, a sleeping white bat, a tense scorpion, a family of crocodiles. Aboard ship, Indiana, Scraggy, Clare, and Betsy are gathered on the deck, seated in a circle. They are surrounded by the crew members. Everyone eats their dinner from tin cans. The surrounding lanterns cast an eerie light on the area. The young crew member plays a soft, squeaky tune on his guitar. Betsy is restless. She glares at the guitar player.
Don't you know something else? Something upbeat?
The guitar player ignores Betsy, continuing to play. Betsy sighs, upset and bored.
It's so hot. Stuffy. Do we have to stay on this stupid boat all night?
And we have to keep moving.
Can we at least jump in the water? Go for a swim?
There's an old legend about the Zambezi. In ancient times, criminals were given their choice of execution or swimming across the Zambezi. Most choose execution.
Claire's right. We'll be safer on the boat. Quit moaning at your food.
An angry Betsy tosses her tin can overboard. She stands, furious with Indiana.
You are so rude. I travel thousands of miles just to be with you, and everybody treats me like dirt. Nobody even talks to me without making some condescending remark. They think I'm too stupid to understand. So maybe I don't know a lot about weird tribal dances. I'm still pretty good with anthropology and archaeology. Maybe I could even help you out. If somebody gave me a chance, clued me into what it is we're really doing here. 'Cause whether you like it or not, Indiana Jones, I'm a part of this expedition too.
Claire raises an eyebrow, impressed. Indiana says nothing. He can't argue. Scraggy interjects.
My friends, also curious about where we journey to, Indy.
The crew members nod, staring at Indiana. Indiana turns to Claire. She smiles.
Tell us all a bedtime story, Dr. Jones.
Indiana sighs. The crew member's guitar playing combines with the soundtrack, backing up Indiana's story with an eerie tune.
Long ago, a place known as the Flower Fruit Mountain in a Chinese province of Ao Lai was struck by lightning. A stone monkey, Sun Wukong, was born.
This monkey, he could walk, talk, like human?
And more than human. He was blessed with countless heavenly powers, but it wasn't enough. Sun Wukong wanted to learn the secret of eternal life, of immortality. Equipped with his golden hooped rod to protect him, Sun Wukong traveled the world for many years, learning the secret philosophies and teachings of eternal youth. Eventually, he was granted entrance to heaven, where the Jade Emperor gave Sun Wukong the title of the Great Sage of the Heavens, and permitted him to oversee the Garden of Immortal Peaches. After several years, the stone monkey returned to somewhere on Earth. Here he ruled an empire, a civilization of monkeys and humans who had lifespans of many hundreds of years. The exact whereabouts of that lost city had been a mystery for hundreds of years, until Dr. Clark discovered that pygmy.
The crew members, Scraggy, Betsy, and Clare, listen with fascination.
It's uncertain just how much of this legend is based in reality. Nevertheless, we're hoping to find some sign of the lost civilization.
What about Sun Wukong?
Whatever he was, a stone idol, an actual monkey, a human being, it's unknown. But he is one of the most influential religious figures in history, and his remains are most likely somewhere in the lost city.
Suddenly, they are interrupted by a distant sound, a low rumbling sound, bizarre, unearthly, unlike anything we've heard before. Indiana turns to Scraggy.
Does it sound familiar?
It is far, far away, many miles.
What is it? Some kind of weird animal?
No animal sounds like that.
Could be Bansi Baba.
Bansi Baba?
Bansi Baba is a giant demon from hell. He's 50 feet tall, breathes fire, makes sound like human never heard before. He's made up of all evil in the world.
Cheery thought.
The sound suddenly stops. Everyone exchanges a frightened, terrified glance. Indiana stands.
Whatever the hell it is, they went to sleep tonight, which is what we should do.
Cut to later that night, long shot, the boat. The boat sails along the river. Beneath the moonlight, a lone crew member stays awake at the steering wheel. Other crew members sleep along the deck. Scraggy sleeps in a hanging cot. Indiana is asleep in his cabin. Suddenly, the door slowly creaks open. A shadow appears on the cabin wall, coming toward Indiana. The shadow extends a hand. The hand grabs Indy's blanket. Indy wakes. He leaps out of bed and tackles the mysterious person. Indy flips on the cabin lamp. The intruder is none other than Betsy. Indiana pulls Betsy to her feet. She gives a flirtatious smile.
Couldn't sleep. The heat. I'm in the mood for passion.
I'm in the mood for isolation.
Indiana leads Betsy to the open door. He begins to push her back outside. Betsy stops him.
I'm not leaving. Not till I get a kiss.
Betsy.
One kiss. Or I'll scream. I swear, I'll wake up the whole boat.
Indiana has no choice. He sighs.
Okay. Just one. Keep your mouth closed.
They kiss. Betsy wraps her arms around Indiana, turning it into a passionate kiss. At that moment across the hall, Clare exits the bathroom, toothbrush in hand. She sees the kissing Indiana and Betsy or Betty. Claire stares, open mouth, shocked. Indiana opens his eyes. She slams the door. We hear Claire locking the door behind her and moving a piece of furniture in front of the door. Indiana pushes Betsy away, angry. He quickly closes his door. Betsy walks back to her room. A huge, satisfied smile covers her face. The following morning, sunrise, peaceful, calm, birds sing. The riverboat has traveled countless miles into the heart of the Zambezi. A tired crew member mans the boat's steering wheel. Camera pans down, moving along the side of the boat. We stop at water level. A hand shoots out of the water, gripping a rusted, sharp knife, followed by another hand, and another, until there are countless hands reaching for the side of the riverboat. The hands grab hold of the boat. Several dark figures slowly rise out of the water. Only the outlines of their bodies are visible, backlit by the rising sun. The figures climb up the side of the boat, carefully creeping, moving silently. Indiana stands on the rear deck, shirt wrapped around his waist. He's shaving. Claire sits a few feet away, writing in her journal. Indy glances to her, curious.
I'll tell you writing.
The Erotic Adventures of Indiana Jones, Professor of Perversity.
Very funny.
Camera pans to the front deck, stopping on the driver. He stares ahead, steering the ship. Suddenly, a figure appears behind the driver. The figure grabs the driver around the neck. Before the driver can scream, the figure slices his throat. Scraggy witnesses this through an open porthole, his face covered with shock, fear. Interior lower cabin, kitchen. Betsy stands over a large skillet. She fries pancakes. Lifting the first pancake, Betsy places it on a plate that rests beside her. Betsy turns to get another pancake. A hand reaches from off screen. The hand grabs the pancake from the plate. Betsy turns back. She sees the empty plate. She's puzzled, confused. She shrugs, placing another pancake on the plate. She turns back to the skillet. Again, a hand grabs the pancake. Betsy turns and again sees an empty plate. She hears giggling. Behind her, she turns and sees an Asian pirate, tall, muscular. The pirate towers above Betsy. He's dressed in colorful, tattered clothes. The pirate laughs. His bloated mouth dribbles with pancake crumbs. Betsy steps back, frightened. The pirate moves a dagger from his belt, eyes filled with lechery. The pirate moves toward Betsy. She grabs the skillet, throwing hot oil in the pirate's face. He screams. Betsy dashes out of the kitchen. Indiana has nearly finished shaving. He tries to convince Claire of his innocence. She continues to write, ignoring him.
You are blowing this Betsy thing all out of proportion.
Indiana leans down. He rinses his face in a large bucket of water. A dagger flies into frame, just missing Indiana. It sticks into the wall a few feet above Indy's head. Claire witnesses this, shocked. Unaware of the danger, Indiana raises his head out of the bucket. He still tries to reason with Claire.
I mean, it's not as if I have this sleazy reputation.
Claire is trying to interrupt Indy, trying to point out the dagger. But before she can say a word, Indiana again leans into the water bucket. Another dagger shoots into frame, into the wall, this time only inches above Indy's head. Indiana again raises his head.
I am a respected, honored, admired.
Claire leaps forward. She pushes Indy out of the way moments before another dagger flies into frame, sticking into the wall. Indy and Claire turn. 3 pirates stand here, dirty, toothless, ugly. Swords extended, they move toward Indiana and Claire. Indy's eyes dart to the water bucket table. His whip and pistol rest here, out of reach. Indy and Claire are trapped. The pirates move closer. Suddenly, a loud scream. The pirates look up. Scraggy swings from a rope above toward the pirates. Before the pirates can react, Scraggy crashes into them. They tumble to the deck. Scraggy shoots to his feet. He tosses a spare sword to Indy. Scraggy and Indy begin to sword fight the pirates. Claire turns, dashing around the corner to safety. A sudden stop. Her face is buried in the hairy, bare chest of Kezure, an enormous bear-like pirate king. Kezure hasn't bathed in years. He is dressed in several layers of tattered, colorful clothing, golden jewelry, and animal skins. His stringy hair is long, tied in a ponytail behind his head. A thick, long mustache wraps around a large mouth filled with crooked golden teeth. Claire shrieks. Kezure grabs her around the waist. He tosses Claire over his shoulder. The riverboat is overcome with a mixture of Asian and black pirates. Soundtrack music soars. There is a heated battle between the crew members and the pirates, fists flying, swords clashing. Using her Brooklyn street smarts, Betsy fights like a pro. With a swift punch and kick, Betsy defeats one pirate. She takes his sword. Another pirate comes for Betsy. She edges him on.
Come on, you ain't so tough. You wouldn't last 10 minutes in Brooklyn. It's tough.
The pirate attacks. He and Betsy begin a heated sword fight. Indiana and Scraggy continue to battle the onslaught of sword-slinging pirates. Suddenly, Indy is interrupted by Claire's loud scream. He turns. A pirate ship has appeared. Beside the riverboat, the ship is ancient, ominous. Countless pirates are aboard the ship, armed with guns, bows and arrows, and cannons. Exterior riverboat, top deck. Kezure, the pirate king, stands at the edge of the boat. He still holds the screaming Claire over his shoulder. From the pirate ship, the pirates toss a grapnel rope to Kezure. The pirate king grabs hold of the rope. Holding tightly to Claire, Kezure swings from the riverboat to the pirate ship. Indiana runs through the fighting crew members and pirates in an effort to save Claire. Suddenly, the sound of cannon fire. The riverboat rocks. hit by a cannonball. Indy keeps his balance, sword in hand. He dives into the water. Indiana swims across the Zambezi toward the pirate ship. The water surrounding Indy erupts with countless sprays of bullets, cannonballs, and flying arrows. Exterior riverboat, top deck. The sword-fighting crew members manage to keep the many pirates at bay. Scraggy exchanges swordplay with the pirate. The sword is knocked from Scraggy's hand. He is defenseless. The pirate comes in for the kill. He raises his sword, ready to plunge it into Scraggy's heart. The pirate suddenly pauses, a horrified look on his face. The end of a sword shoots out of the pirate's chest. A moment passes. The sword slides back inside of the pirate's chest. The pirate falls to the deck. Betsy stands behind him. She holds the bloodied sword. Scraggy gives her a thankful nod. Exterior pirate ship. Indiana has made it across the Zambezi. He climbs up the side of the pirate ship. The pirates begin to shoot at Indy. Indy is hit. An arrow in the arm. He dives to safety in a nearby cannon compartment. Interior cannon compartment. Indy pulls the arrow out of his arm. He is suddenly attacked by the pirate gunner. The two begin to struggle, fight. Camera pans to the rear of the cannon, moving to a close-up of the fuse. The fuse is lit, burning. Meanwhile, Indy and the pirate fight directly in front of the cannon's open barrel. Every few seconds, each of their heads moves in front of the opening. The fuse continues to burn, getting lower, lower. Exterior pirate ship, top deck. Clare has been tied to a mast pole. Kezure stands in front of her. As his men battle around him, Kezure leans forward. The drooling pirate king sloppily kisses Clare along her neck. Clare is nauseous, as are we all. Interior cannon compartment. Indy and the pirate continue to fight. The cannon fuse sparks, burning toward the bottom. The pirate pushes Indy's head inside of the cannon opening. The fuse will blow at any second. At the last moment, Indiana overpowers the pirate. Indy leaps to the floor. The pirate falls forward, face to face with the cannon opening. Boom, the cannon fires. Indy's shirt is splattered with blood. Indiana runs to a wooden staircase, hurrying up the stairs to the top deck. Exterior pirate ship, top deck. Kezure kisses the bare shoulder of the struggling, helpless Clare. Indy emerges from the cannon compartment. Upon seeing the pirate king attack Clare, Indiana shouts.
You son of a bitch!
Kezure turns. He emits a gravelly laugh and scratches his neck, curiously studying Indiana. Indy extends his sword. The pirate king removes a long, sharp, golden sword. They begin to fight. Moving along the deck, a fast-paced, heated sword fight. Exterior riverboat, top deck. A pirate has taken over the boat's wheel. He steers the riverboat off the regular path. It speeds toward the base of a large, thrashing waterfall. The pirate ship moves alongside of the riverboat, also headed for the waterfall. Scraggy and Betsy see the waterfall ahead. Panic fills their eyes. They dash to the steering wheel. Betsy distracts the pirate. They begin to sword fight. Scraggy takes the steering wheel. He attempts to steer the ship away from the waterfall. Exterior pirate ship, top deck. Indiana and the pirate king have climbed to the top of the ship's mast. They battle amidst the tangled ropes, swords clashing. As the two men fight, Indy notices that the pirate ship is headed for the waterfall. Indiana has a sudden realization. He sees Scraggy trying to steer the riverboat in the opposite direction. Indy screams above the cannon fire.
Scraggy! No! Keep going straight! Full steam ahead!
Scraggy is confused by Indy's orders. He screams back to Indiana.
What? You crazy Indy? We be crushed. We smashed the rock wall.
Indiana, still sword fighting the pirate king, screams to Scraggy.
No! Trust me! Full steam ahead! Full steam ahead!
Scraggy blesses himself. His face is strong, confident. He revs the engine, full speed. He tightly clutches the wheel, aiming the riverboat toward the waterfall. Indiana and Kezure swing from sail to sail, continuing their spectacular sword fight. Clare helplessly watches from the deck. The riverboat and the pirate ship continue to move side by side, moving closer, closer to the shattering waterfall. Scraggy continues to rev the riverboat's engine, chanting various prayers under his breath. In the background, a feisty Betsy continues to sword fight. The riverboat and the pirate ship penetrate the waterfall. The two boats are met with an exploding shower of powerful water. Crew members and pirates are tossed about the deck. Indiana and the pirate king hold tightly to the sails to avoid being thrown into the waters below. Exterior riverboat. The aged boat tosses, tilts, spins, nearly capsizing. Boards creak and moan, ready to burst. But Scraggy holds tightly to the steering wheel, keeping the boat afloat. The powerful water sends Betsy somersaulting along the deck. She tries to grab hold of something, anything that will prevent her from falling off the boat. Betsy finally clutches onto something, the arm of a dead pirate. The riverboat and the pirate ship are immersed into the waterfall. They disappear behind the thrashing curtain of water. Behind the waterfall, the pirates' hidden fortress, an enormous underground cavern. Hundreds of burning torches cast a devilish glow. The gray rocks of the cavern walls stretch upward, filled with countless tiny caves. Various stone artifacts and ancient utensils are scattered throughout the cavern. There are several other pirates here, armed, waiting for the return of the pirate ship. The riverboat and pirate ship enter the cave. The rushing waterfall thrashes behind them. The battered and bruised riverboat comes to a rough stop, screeching along a far wall. The pirate ship sails to a smooth stop in the middle of the cavern. Armed with guns, knives, and swords, the pirates hurriedly surround the intruding riverboat. They take Betsy, Scraggy, and the crew members captive. Kezure leaps to the pirate ship's deck and quickly unties Clare. Indiana attempts to follow. He pauses, quickly grabbing a few sticks of dynamite from the pirate ship's deck. Kezure begins to lead Clare off of the ship. His sword at her throat, Indiana calls out.
Wait!
Kezure stops. He turns. Indy walks toward Kezure, stopping less than 10 feet from the Pirate King and Clare. Indy's eyes burn through Kezure.
Free the girl and my friends, or I blow your hideout here out of the water.
Kezure laughs. Indiana lights the dynamite fuses. Kezure stops laughing, worried for a moment. Then the Pirate King breaks into a wide, defiant smile.
Good. We will all die.
A standoff. Indy didn't expect this. He is suddenly frightened, puzzled. Betsy, Scraggy, and Clare stare at Indy, waiting for his next move as the dynamite fuse slowly burns, getting closer, closer to the TNT. Kezure seems calm, perfectly willing to die. Indy gets another idea. He blurts it out to Kezure.
We can take you to the lost city of Sun Wukong.
Better men than you have tried to find the lost city. They have all failed. You are a fool.
No, you're a fool. You and your friends are hiding out in Sun Wukong's water curtain cave and you don't even know it.
Huh?
Scraggy and Betsy exchange a shocked glance. Clare is also surprised by the news. The TNT fuse nears the end, ready to blow at any second. Indiana removes the ancient scroll from his pocket. He extends the scroll to Kezure.
The sacred Paicho scroll.
Kezure grabs the scroll, attempting to read it. Indy interrupts.
Don't bother. Only we can translate it.
Kezure examines the scroll, puzzled by the writing. Indiana and Scraggy exchange a hopeful glance. Kezure pauses, thinking. He mumbles to himself.
The lost city. Said to have streets paved in gold treasures far greater than any mortal man could imagine.
Kezure pushes Clare away toward Indiana. Clare embraces Indy as he blows out the dynamite fuse. Kezure growls at Indy.
Your pathetic lives will not be spared for now. But everything we find in the lost city belongs to me.
Fat chance, Sinbad. That's 50-50 or you got no deal.
It is my way or you've got no head.
Cut 2. Interior water curtain cave that night. A group of pirates sit together, drunk. They sing one of their ancient songs. The guitar-strumming crew member accompanies them. Indiana and Scraggy sit around a blazing fire with Kezure and several other pirates. Indy, wearing his spectacles, translates the scrolls with Scraggy. Indiana is puzzled, troubled. He looks at Scraggy.
Read that last proverb again.
High tide drowns curiosity. Low tide quenches thirst.
There's something here. Something that can help us.
Meanwhile, Betsy and Clare work in another section of the cave. Clare is doing some archaeological work, studying the various artifacts and utensils. Betsy assists her. They are surrounded by leering, hungry-eyed pirates. The drunken pirates don't take their eyes off of the girls. Betsy notices. She points it out to Clare.
Look at them. It's like they've never seen a woman before.
To them, we're the ultimate woman.
Kind of flattering, isn't it? Being the girl of 200 guys' dreams.
Clare and Betsy exchange a chuckle. Meanwhile, Indiana, Scraggy, and Kezure walk through the cavern. Indy is looking around, curious. He turns to Kezure.
Is there an area, a place where the tide changes?
Kezure leads Indiana and Scraggy into a dark corner of the cavern. A large, smooth wall stretches to the ceiling. The wall is filled with intricate cracks. At the base of the wall, water slowly pours into the cavern. Kezure points to the water.
In a few hours, the water will be Lower, much lower.
And the remainder of this wall will be visible?
Kezure nods. Indiana's eyes light, a realization. He excitedly turns to Kezure.
We're gonna need light. A lot of light on this wall.
Kezure nods. Indiana exchanges an anxious, hopeful glance with Scraggy. Resolved to close up, a snoring pirate. Camera pulls back. All of the pirates sleep. Their slumbering bodies lie in various positions throughout the cave. Indiana and Kezure are still awake. The flickering orange light of the torches illuminates the wall in front of them. They await the lowering tide. Scraggy, Betsy, and Clare sleep on the ground beside them. Kezure pours 2 glasses of whiskey from a stone bottle. He gives a glass to Indiana. Kezure toasts.
To my good fortune.
Kezure gobbles down the whiskey. Indiana reluctantly drinks. Kezure pours 2 more glasses, laughing.
You know, we are very much alike, Dr. Jones.
I doubt that.
We both share remarkable talent for killing.
I never gotten used to killing, pal. I do it for survival.
I do it for pleasure.
Indiana downs his whiskey. A laughing Kezure does this. Indiana notices something on the wall. He jumps to his feet. Camera pans to the wall. The tide is very low. The entire wall is now visible. What were once simple cracks have become the specific lines of the map. A group of arrows leads to an X at the bottom corner of the map. A fascinated Kezure and Indiana study the wall.
This is incredible. The map was obviously used by Sun Wukong's disciples. If they were ever lost.
These drawings, they're out the surrounding jungle.
Where's that?
It is located the most eastern part of the jungle, near the mountains. There's a village there, the Mongubo tribe.
You know them?
Very well. I traded with the chief for many years.
Good. We'll leave in the morning.
Camera pans from Indiana and Kezure to a dark cave. A few feet away, standing inside, is the figure of the mysterious crew member, the traitor. His face is hidden in the shadows. Again, he radios back to Nazis. He whispers in German. Camera dollies into a close-up of his radio microphone. A red swastika adorns the microphone. Exterior jungle plains the following afternoon. Scraggy's decrepit Model T taxi putters across the flat jungle terrain. The hot sun shines in the background. The car is completely packed with people, ready to burst. Scraggy drives. Indiana, Clare, and Betsy are crowded in the front seat. Kezure and 4 pirates ride in the rear compartment. Everyone is uncomfortable, cramped, sweating. 2 of Scraggy's crew members straddle the sideboard. 3 men sit on the roof, including the guitar player, who plays a delightful melody. Various rusted pots, pans, and other utensils dangle from the car. This creates a charming jingling sound. The taxi passes a herd of giraffes. The beautiful animals stare in bewilderment at the passing taxi. Suddenly, there is a distant sound, the same low rumbling we heard earlier. The giraffes scatter, afraid of the unnatural sound. Interior taxi. The bizarre sound echoes through the taxi. Indy exchanges a puzzled look with the others.
That sound. Again.
Still far away, but getting closer.
The sound stops. Indiana is bothered, disturbed. Kezure leans forward. He points to a clustered area of jungle, nearly a mile in the distance.
The village is there, beyond the thick of a jungle.
Scraggy nods. He drives toward the village. Suddenly, an arrow shoots through the window, just missing everyone. It shatters the passenger window. A tribe of native warriors appear on the terrain. There are hundreds, screaming in high-pitched squeals. Their bodies adorned with red and white paint. The angry warriors run toward the taxi, firing arrows. On the taxi roof, the men dive for cover. Arrows whiz by their heads. Inside, everyone rolls up the windows. The taxi is attacked with a shower of arrows. Scraggy floors the gas. The taxi keeps moving ahead, speeding toward the jungle. Indiana glares at Kezure.
You said they knew you.
Kezure gives a puzzled shrug. The warriors continue to chase the taxi, getting closer, firing more arrows. The taxi spins to a stop, directly in front of a large opening that leads into the jungle. Everyone pours out of the taxi. Arrows fly by their heads. They dash to the opening into the jungle. The warriors stop outside of the opening. They don't enter. Turning to each other, they begin to laugh, victorious. Interior jungle. An almost perfect path has been cleared through the thick jungle. Indiana and the others run through the path. Indy suddenly pauses, motioning for the others to stop. A puzzled look covers his face.
Wait. Listen. You're not following us.
One of the pirates continues to move forward. His foot trips a thin string that stretches across the path. Whoosh! A booby-trapped palm tree swings forward. It slams into the pirate like a giant baseball bat. It sends the pirate flying upward high into the air. His body is thrown several feet into the jungle. Indiana exchanges a cautious look with the others.
Be careful where you step. Got to move slowly. Very slowly.
Indiana leads everyone. They creep through the path. Indy pauses. Camera pans to his waist. A section of vine stretches across the path. Another booby trap. Indiana crawls beneath the vine. He motions for the others to follow. One by one, they carefully crawl beneath the vine. The guitar player is last. He begins to crawl through. He nearly makes it when the top of his guitar hits the vine. The vine snaps. There is a creaking sound. A giant metal trap over 4 feet high shoots up from the ground. A human trap. The guitar player dives to safety. The trap's sharp metal teeth snap shut. The guitar is snapped in two. Soon the path erupts with countless rows of traps. They eject from the ground, snapping shut, one after the other. Everyone begins to run. The traps snap shut only a few feet behind them. Everyone rounds a corner. They come upon an enormous pit over 10 feet deep, filled with countless layers of scorpions. There is nowhere to turn, nowhere to run. The metal traps continue to shut behind them. Indiana removes his sword. He slices at a bamboo tree. The traps continue to shut behind him, getting closer, closer. Indiana gives a final whack to the tree. It falls. Stretching across the pool, only a few feet above the stinging scorpions. Indiana begins to climb across, moving hand over hand. Everyone hurriedly follows. The bamboo tree creaks with their every movement. Their feet dangle only inches above the scorpions. The last pirate grabs hold of the bamboo tree just as the final metal trap shuts, just missing him. As the last pirate makes his way across the pit, he drops a small bag of gold coins. The coins rest a few feet below, directly on top of the scorpions. The pirate pauses, deciding whether to climb to safety or retrieve the coins. Everyone else has made it across. The greedy pirate wants his money. With his left hand, he holds tightly to the bamboo tree. With the other, he reaches for the coins. His fingers are inches from the coins, but he loses his grip. He falls into the pit, surrounded by hundreds of scorpions. He struggles to get out, climbing, swimming, but he only manages to sink. The pirate screams die as his body is engulfed by the stinging scorpions. Indiana and the others continue ahead, moving slowly, carefully. Someone's footsteps on a wooden trigger. There's another creaking sound. Behind everyone, a large bamboo door ejects from the ground. It leads to an underground cage. The door creaks open. 3 ferocious lions leap out, teeth bared, growling. They come for the humans. Everyone dashes forward, running. The lions are in hot pursuit, fast. The humans don't stand a chance. Suddenly, Claire stops. She turns, facing the charging lions. Indiana looks back, screaming.
Claire, where are you?
The lions stop, inches from Claire. They surround her, ready to attack. Indiana watches, puzzled. Claire begins to make bizarre purring and cooing sounds. The lions pause. They recognize the sounds. Claire continues. The lions begin to warm up to her. Claire kneels. She pets the beasts. The lions snuggle up to Claire, licking her face. Indiana and the others come closer, puzzled. Claire explains.
I imitated the sound of a lion mother calling her babies.
Betsy is impressed. Indiana smiles, relieved.
Come on. Let's get out of...
Andy turns, face to face with a grotesque shrunken head. He steps back. The shrunken head is worn around the neck of a tall, muscular tribal chief, leader of the warriors. Countless natives stand behind the chief. A look of anger, hate covers the chief's face. Indiana gives a hopeful glance to Kezure.
Is this the tribal chief you told me about? Your friend?
No, that is him.
Indiana rolls his eyes. The warriors surround everyone. Arrows aimed, ready to kill. The warriors lead everyone out of the path. Exterior Gubo village. Several grass huts are scattered throughout this large village. Indiana and the others are led into the village. They pass the penetrating, unfriendly glares of the villagers. Kezure explains to Indiana.
This is a different tribe. New. They have taken over the village.
What happened to the other tribe?
Kezure shrugs. Indiana turns to Scraggy.
Do you recognize their language?
Suddenly, a voice echoes from inside of the oven. The natives listen. Again, the voice shouts from inside. It's Scraggy. The natives recognize the language. They quickly open the oven door. Scraggy is screaming in the tribe's tongue. The grill is pulled out of the oven. The natives hurriedly untie the slightly smoked Indiana, Kezure, and Scraggy. Scraggy shoots to his feet furious. He begins to shout at the tribal chief. The chief and the villagers are awestruck by Scraggy's words. The nervous chief orders Clare, Betsy, and the others untied. Scraggy whispers to Indiana.
I tell him, we divine messengers of Sun Wukong. If he interfere with our mission, Jade Emperor come down from heavens and destroy his village.
Indy smiles. Scraggy turns and again shouts at the chief. The chief obeys Scraggy's every word. He leads Indy and Scraggy to another area of the village. Scraggy translates for Indiana.
I tell him we lose past the city. I ask him if he has something to help us.
The chief leads Indy and Scraggy into a large interior grass hut. Empty, save for an elaborate marble altar. A dull mirror rests on the altar. The small mirror is surrounded by a crude stone frame. The chief picks up the mirror and gives it to Scraggy. The chief explains. Scraggy gives the mirror to Indiana.
He says this will help us, and since we are divine messengers, we'll know how to use it.
Indiana smirks. He examines the mirror, totally confused by it. Cut to exterior Mangubu village dawn. The village sleeps, quiet, peaceful. Scraggy's Model T is parked here. Several of the crew members and pirates are sleeping in and around the car. Kezure is sprawled on the car's roof, snoring. It's obvious that they have camped here for the evening. Suddenly, a slight tremor surges through the village, a soft vibration. Cooking utensils rattle, grass huts shake. Interior grass hut. Indiana sleeps here, in a hammock. The vibration wakes Indy. As he moves to climb out of the hammock, a figure leaps on top of him. Betsy.
Indy, I'm frightened.
I'm claustrophobic.
Indiana attempts to push Betsy out of the hammock. She resists. They begin to wrestle, struggle. The hammock becomes tangled around their bodies. Clare walks by the hut. She looks inside. To her, it appears that Indy and Betsy are in the middle of a passionate love scene. She emits a shocked gasp. Indiana sees Clare. He calls out.
Clare, wait!
But the startled Clare hurries away. Indiana manages to escape Betsy and the tangled hammock. He lands on the floor, breathless. Exterior village. The vibrating intensifies. The ground begins to rumble. The surrounding trees shake. The villagers pour out of their huts, gathering in the middle of town, frightened. Indiana and Betsy join Scraggy, Clare, Kezure, and the others. Betsy is puzzled by the tremors.
An earthquake?
The tribal chief steps forward. He says one word in his language. Scraggy translates for the others.
Wildebeest.
Cut to a herd of stampeding wildebeest. Hundreds of the raging animals plow through the jungle, moving fast. They crush everything in their path. Exterior Mangubu village. The vibrating is louder, harder. The villagers panic. They run away, scattering into the jungle. Indiana and his party are clustered together. Clare exclaims.
We have to get out, or we'll be crushed to death.
Scraggy, how close?
Scraggy puts his ear to the trembling ground. He listens.
2 miles.
Indy dashes to the Model T supply rack. He tosses shovels to each of the group. He looks around.
Now, where's the softest ground?
Scraggy asks a passing villager. The villager shouts some gibberish and continues running. Scraggy points off screen toward a communal graveyard. Cut to the wildebeest, snorting, stomping, carving a wide path through the thick jungle. Small animals run for their lives. Bunnies dash ahead of the herd. Monkeys swing to other trees. The angry wildebeest continue ahead. Exterior village. Indiana and the others stand in the large graveyard, shovels in hand. They have dug a large hole. Pieces of decayed bodies and skeletons protrude from the surrounding hole. Scraggy stares at the ghastly sight, eyes wide, fearful. He begins to babble, hysterical.
Oh, no, many dead spirits, bad spirits. We must stay away.
Indy interrupts by pushing Scraggy into the open grave. Scraggy falls into the arms of a skeleton. He screams. Cut to the herd of wildebeest bursting through a section of jungle. They arrive on the vast jungle plain. Directly ahead of them, several feet in the distance, is the Mangubu village. The wildebeest head straight to the village. Exterior village, deserted. No sign of human life. Everything trembles with the force of a major earthquake. The wildebeest arrive, destroying the village. Grass huts are flattened. The enormous stone oven collapses, crumbling to pieces. Scraggy's Model T is overturned. With nothing left standing, the wildebeest move on. The village has been completely devastated, surrounded with a heavy cloud of dust. Camera pans to the graveyard. Grave markers and tombstones lie broken and crushed. Countless footprints cover the flat ground. The dust begins to settle. The graveyard ground suddenly buckles, moving. A hand shoots out. Indiana climbs out of the dirt. He is followed by the others, who also climb out from underground. Everyone is unhurt, safe, protected by the ground above. A skeleton has attached itself to Betsy, refusing to let go. Scraggy, Indy, and a few of the men run to the overturned Model T taxi. They grab hold of the car and turn it back upright. Claire looks at the devastated village. Betsy stands beside her, struggling to escape from the clutches of the skeleton. Claire looks into the distance, watching the departing wildebeest. She's troubled, worried.
That's odd. Wildebeests will not stampede unless provoked.
Suddenly, the same low rumbling sound from earlier echoes through the area, but this time it is loud, nearly deafening. Scraggy looks at Indy.
This time, it is very close, Indy. Very close.
At that moment, directly behind Scraggy and Indy, the jungle erupts. The trees separate, crashing to the ground, making way for some giant behemoth. Scraggy and the others leap in one direction. Indiana leaps in another. A giant tank shoots out of the jungle, a metal monstrosity, one of a kind. The tank is over 10 times the size of a normal tank, nearly 100 feet long, over 25 feet high. It is equipped with 3 levels. On the top level is the tank's swiveling gun barrel, enormous, the size of a cannon. 2 giant blazing red swastikas are on both sides of the tank's second level. The tank runs over Scraggy's Model T. The car is flattened. A thick cloud of dust erupts from the ground. Interior tank. Gutterbuhg is here. He views the outside action through a periscope. 2 Nazi gunners are behind him, waiting for orders to shoot. Pikey sits in the background. The confused pygmy is bound and gagged. Outside, Scraggy, Clare, Betsy, Kezure, and the others dash across the plains, running away from the pursuing tank. Indiana is not with them. Scraggy, unable to see through the dust, falls out.
Indy! Indy!
Indiana is several feet away, on the ground, alone, lost in the thick of dust. Suddenly, a dark figure appears, towering over Indiana. The dust begins to clear, revealing a protruding white horn. More dust clears. We see that the figure is a large black rhinoceros. Indy leaps to his feet. The rhino snorts. Indy turns to run. The rhino chases him. Meanwhile, with most of the dust cleared, the tank chases Indy's friends across the jungle plains. Interior tank. Gutterbuhg looks into the periscope. Indy's friends are in his sights. Gutterbuhg screams to the gunners.
I don't shoot! Fire!
Outside, the tank's large barrel fires a shot at the running group. The blast flies over their heads, just missing everyone. It blasts a row of palm trees to smithereens. Indiana is still running from the rampaging rhino. Indy begins to run in a circle. The angry rhino follows him. The circle begins to tighten, becoming smaller, smaller, until Indy is nearly running alongside of the rhino. At the exact moment, Indy grabs hold of the rhino. He leaps onto the beast. With a bit of careful maneuvering, Indiana is riding the rhinoceros. Scraggy, Betsy, Clare, Kezure, and the others continue to run. The tank is right behind them, moving fast, in hot pursuit. The tank fires another shot. It splatters the ground. Beside the group, again, just missing everyone. The group turns, running in another direction. The tank follows. Indiana continues to ride the wild, bucking rhino. He has no control over the beast. The rhino spots something, the tank. From this angle, the tank with its large protruding gun barrel resembles a giant rhinoceros. Seeing this, the rhino turns and runs toward the tank, head on. Indy holds tightly. Scraggy and the others pause. They see the tank behind them. They see the rhino ahead of them. The group makes quick turn to the right. They run toward a ravine. The tank is headed straight for Indy and the rhino, both moving at full speed. Interior tank. Through the periscope, Gutterbuhg sees Indy and the rhino. Indiana continues to ride the uncontrollable rhino. They are within 30 feet of the oncoming tank. Interior tank. Gutterbuhg screams in German, ordering the Nazi gunner to fire. Exterior planes. The tank fires. The blast is low. The ground in front of Indy and the rhino explodes. A cloud of dust erupts. Interior tank. Gutterbuhg looks through the periscope. His view is blocked by dust. Exterior planes. The tank is upon Indy and the rhino. The rhino screeches to a stop, frightened by the blast. Indiana leaps onto the tank, gripping the front section, holding on for dear life. Moments before he is crushed beneath the tank's giant treads, the rhino turns and runs off. Scraggy, Betsy, Clare, Kezure, and the others have arrived at the foot of a tall, several-branched tree located at the side of the ravine. Over the ravine's edge is a several hundred-foot drop onto jagged rocks. Scraggy begins to climb the tree.
Safest place from bad spirits is in branches of trees.
The others shrug. They have no choice but to follow Scraggy up into the branches of the tree. Indiana climbs along the side of the monstrous tank. He searches for a passageway inside of the tank. Interior tank. The Nazis are unaware of Indy's presence on the tank. Gutterbuhg continues to look at the periscope. The dust begins to clear. He focuses his sights on Indy's friends, located several feet away. They climb into the tree. Gutterbuhg smiles. Exterior tank. Indy cannot find a passageway into the tank. He sees the gun barrel. Overhead, it swivels. Aiming toward the tree filled with Indy's friends, Indy grabs one of the tank's large headlights. He pulls hard, snapping off the headlight. Indy leaps upward. He quickly stuffs the headlight inside of the barrel open. In the tank, the tree of Indy's friends are in Gutterbuhg's sights. A perfect shot. Gutterbuhg screams in German, ordering the Nazi gunners to shoot. They fire, but the barrel backfires, exploding in the face of the two Nazi gunners. It sends them flying against the wall, out cold. The cabin fills with smoke. Only Gutterbuhg and Taiki remain. A furious Gutterbuhg picks up the radio. He screams into the microphone.
Hilfe schicken! Wir brauchen Hilfe!
Taiki helplessly watches in the background. Gutterbuhg looks into the periscope. He sees Indiana. On the tank, Gutterbuhg hits a red button on the control panel. Exterior tank. Countless rows of machine guns eject from secret slots, all around the tank's first level. The machine guns begin to fire rapidly, wildly. Indiana ducks and dodges the guns. He climbs to the second level, but the large swastikas begin to move, opening. They are actually hidden doors, secret compartments. Several Nazi soldiers exit the compartments. They come for Indiana. He fights the onslaught of soldiers, punching, wrestling. The tank, without a driver, begins to wildly spin, going in circles. From the tree, Scraggy sees Indy's dilemma. He shouts to the others.
Indy in trouble. We must help.
Scraggy begins to climb out of the tree. A gun suddenly moves into frame, pointed at Scraggy's head. Scraggy turns. One of his crew members holds the gun.
Don't move. All of you stay where you are.
Scraggy and the others freeze. Clare makes a realization. She glares at the crew member.
It was you. You're the reason the Nazis found us.
The crew member gives an evil smile. Indiana continues to fight the Nazis along the second level of the frenzied tank. Indy has defeated most of the soldiers. Only two Nazis remain. They overcome Indy. They push him downward toward the tank's first level, toward the rows of firing machine guns. Indiana struggles to break free. The powerful Nazis push him closer, closer to the machine guns. In the tree, the crew member keeps his pistol aimed at Scraggy's head. Camera pans upward. Kezure is perched on the top branch above Scraggy. At the right moment, Kezure leaps down on top of the treacherous crew member. Kezure knocks the gun from the crew member's hand. Blam! The gun goes off. A stray bullet strikes the tree trunk. Kezure punches the crew member, who loses his balance and falls from the tree, going over the edge of the ravine. His body drops hundreds of feet, crashing to the rocks below. Kezure smiles, victorious. The tree suddenly creaks, groans. A crack is formed around the trunk where the bullet struck. The tree begins to tilt, slowly teetering over the ravine's edge. Everyone panicked. Betsy shouts.
Nobody move, or we'll go over.
Everyone freezes, scared to death. They tightly grip their branches. The tree sways slowly. Indiana still fights the two Nazis, struggling to keep his body from the tank's deadly machine guns. Indy flips one of the Nazis over his head. The Nazi falls directly in front of an entire row of machine guns. His body does a grotesque dance of death, riddled with bullets. Indiana and the other Nazi exchange punches. Their bodies tumble over the rear of the tank. They fall into a small ledge. Above the enormous rotating tank treads, Indy and the Nazi battle to push the other off the ledge. Indiana prevails. He pushes the Nazi on top of the giant treads. The Nazi tries to climb back, but his body is dragged beneath the tank, crushed. Indiana turns, seeing Gutterbuhg climb out of a secret hatch on the tank's top level. Gutterbuhg points his finger at Indy and rapidly fires bullets. Indy dodges around the side of the tank. Bullets bounce off the metal beside it. Meanwhile, Indy's friends sit breathlessly on the swaying tree. Everyone is silent, still. Kezure suddenly sneezes. The tree creaks. It wavers over the ravine's edge, nearly going over, but it doesn't. Everyone catches their breath. The tree continues to teeter. Gutterbuhg pursues Indiana, playing cat and mouse along the top level of the tank. Indiana peers around a corner. Seeing Gutterbuhg ahead, Angi grabs hold of the large rotating gun barrel. Angi lifts his feet and swings forward, riding the gun barrel. He spins around the tank's side and comes up behind the unsuspecting Gutterbuhg. Angi jumps the Nazi. They begin to fight. Gutterbuhg tries to move his mechanical arm into position to shoot Angi. The tank continues to lose control. It no longer spins in circles. It is headed straight toward the tree filled with Indy's friends. Interior tank. Tyche sits inside watching through the periscope, helpless. Exterior planes. Gutterbuhg and Indiana continue to fight. Suddenly there is a buzzing sound, an airplane engine. Indiana looks to the sky. A Nazi biplane flies toward it. The biplane dives, moving lower, lower. Gutterbuhg rolls out of the way. Indy is trapped, a sitting duck. The biplane swoops down, trying to hit Indy. He dives onto the tank top, lying flat. The plane flies directly over Indy, just missing him by a few feet. Meanwhile, the tank still drives directly toward the swaying tree and ravine. Scraggy, Betsy, Clare, Kezure, and the others remain frozen, still, watching the tank come for them. They are frightened, helpless. Indy and Gutterbuhg have resumed their fighting. Standing on the tank's top, the biplane loops in the air, coming back for another shot. Gutterbuhg leaps out of its path. The plane heads straight for Indy. He again dives to the tank's top. The biplane swoops down, this time aiming lower. As it passes Indy, its wheels graze his back. Indy cries out. The tank continues to speed toward the tree of trapped people, getting closer, closer. His back aching, Indy struggles to keep Gutterbugh's machine gun arm from shooting him. The biplane does another midair leap. It turns and heads straight for Indy. This time the plane won't miss. As the biplane gets close, Indy grabs a tight hold of Gutterbugh's mechanical arm. Indy raises the arm, aiming at the biplane. Indy pulls the arm's trigger, firing a round of shots. The rapid bullets strike the plane's belly. The biplane loses control. Its engine coughs and dives. The biplane spins, flipping into a nosedive, leaving a trail of black smoke. The biplane hits the ground, a flaming crash several feet from the tank. Indiana overpowers Gutterbuhg with two hard punches. Indy floors the Nazi. Gutterbuhg lies sprawled on the tank's top, unconscious. Indy turns. He sees that the speeding tank is going to crash into the tree full of his friends. Indiana leaps into the open tank compartment. In the tank, Indiana takes the controls, but they are completely alien to him. He hears a squeal. Tyche. Behind him, Tyche motions to a specific control. Indy grabs hold of it. Exterior planes. The tank screeches, spinning to a stop, inches from the swaying tree. Scraggy, Clare, Betsy, Kezure, and the others emit a unified sigh of relief, but the tree suddenly cracks, it tilts, falling over the ravine edge. Everyone screams. There's a sudden crack of a whip. The whip wraps itself around the trunk of the tree. Indiana holds the opposite end. He pulls with all of his strength. Holding the tree in place, he prevents the tree from falling into the ravine. Indy shouts to his friends through gritted teeth.
Jump! Jump!
Everyone begins to leap from the tree to the ground. Indy continues to hold the tree in place. Muscles bulging, sweat pouring, veins popping. Soon everyone is back on the ground safe. Indy retrieves his whip. The tree tilts, falling over the ravine edge. The tree crashes to the rocks below, splintering into a million pieces. On the top level of the tank, Gutterbuhg stirs, wakes, but Indiana is upon him. Using a rope, Indy ties up Gutterbuhg. He removes the ammo cartridge from the Nazi's mechanical arm, emptying the bullets onto the ground. Indiana pushes Gutterbuhg inside the tank. Tyche crawls out of the tank, sees Clare. Tears of happiness fill his eyes. He runs to Clare. The two exchange a warm embrace. Tyche sees Scraggy. They shake hands and begin an excited conversation like two old friends. Interior tank. Indy grabs the radio microphone. He holds it in front of Gutterbuhg.
Call your mommy.
Gutterbuhg growls. He speaks German into the microphone. The voice of Lieutenant Mephisto answers, echoing over the speakers. Indy grabs the microphone, interrupting.
Yeah, this is Jones. I got your tank. It's all over, pal. You lose.
Cut to a close-up on Lieutenant Mephisto. He is angry, upset, but he forces himself to calmly address Indiana.
Dr. Jones, you surprise me. For a supposedly intelligent man, you jump to childish conclusions. Remember, you are driving our tank. We can follow you anywhere. You are far from defeating us, my friend. The battle has only just begun.
Camera pulls back. Mephisto is standing beside a long row of tents, housing many troops. Several jeeps are parked in the background, all mounted with recoilless cannons. 5 canvas trucks are also here, filled with more troops, cannons, and ammunition. The Nazis have assembled an entire army. Indiana drops the microphone, suddenly worried. He hurries out of the tank. Gutterbuhg stays behind, laughing. Exterior planes. Indiana hurries to Tyche and the others. Indy shoots an impatient glance to Scraggy.
We gotta move. Fast. Ask him if he knows the way to the city from here.
Scraggy asks Tyche. The pygmy answers, pointing off screen. Scraggy translates for Indiana.
He does not know the exact place. but it is somewhere over there.
Indy turns to the direction where Scraggy points. Several miles away, we see countless rows of mountains. Thick layers of clouds surround the mountains. Indiana sighs.
How good that does. It could take months, years to search every one of those.
Betsy has an idea. She removes the stone mirror from Indiana's pocket.
Maybe he knows what to do with this?
Betsy gives the mirror to Tyche. His eyes widen in awe. Tyche recognizes the mirror. He excitedly explains to Scraggy, who translates for Indiana.
The magic mirror of Sun Wukong.
What do you do with it?
Scraggy asks Tyche. The energetic pygmy places the mirror against an upright stone. Tyche adjusts the mirror until it faces the distant mountains. Tyche emits a high-pitched giggle. Pointing to the mirror, everyone gathers around the mirror. The soundtrack music soars. The mirror reflects the clouds above the mountains, but above one specific mountain, we see the image of a city reflected on the clouds. Indiana turns away from the mirror, looking at the specific mountain, but the city is only reflected in the magical mirror. Claire smiles at Indy, quoting Tyche from earlier.
I come from the land of city on clouds.
Indiana nods, hopeful, anxious. He looks back to the magical reflection. Cut to the tank traveling a narrow path. Along the side of a steep mountain, the tank moves upward toward the mountaintop. The tank jerks, wobbles. It's as if the driver were having trouble with the controls. Interior tank. Indiana drives, unfamiliar with the controls. The tank is crowded with everyone. Betsy and Claire sit beside Indy. Gutterbuhg is directly behind him. Kezure teaches a game to Scraggy. Tyche, the pirates, and the various crew members watch. The game appears to be a bizarre version of chess. Only the tokens are dried insects and lizards. Kezure explains.
This is called Taskipi. Only the bravest play.
Upon hearing this, Scraggy is even more excited to play. The game begins. Indiana is becoming extremely frustrated by the tank controls. Betsy gives a serious look to him.
I've been talking to Dr. Clark about our problem.
Problem? Hey, what are you two doing talking behind my back?
Betsy needed help. I obliged.
And since when did you become Sigmund Freud?
Since I received a master's degree in psychology.
Indy rolls his eyes. Meanwhile, Kezure has taken all of Scraggy's tokens. He's obviously won the game. A carefree Scraggy throws up his hands.
We play again?
The game is not over yet, my friend.
Oh.
You have lost. You must pay.
I don't have money.
No money. Rules of the game declare that I may choose a souvenir, a part of your body, any part I wish.
Scraggy gulps. Kezure pauses, rubbing his jaw, thinking. Meanwhile, Betsy explains to Indiana.
Dr. Clark says that you're not really in love with me. You're just trying to prove that you can still attract younger women. You're terrified of getting old.
That's crazy.
That's what I told her. I told her that you really did love me.
Well, that's,
You mean she was right?
No, I mean, yes, I mean.
Indy turns, seeing Claire glaring at him. Indy sighs, pauses. He gives Betsy a tender, honest look.
No, Betsy, I don't love you.
That's the first time you ever said it.
Betsy begins crying into Claire's arms. Indiana shakes his head. Claire comforts Betsy.
There. He's a very disturbed man.
Indiana sighs. He turns, face to face with a grinning and nodding Gutterbuhg. Kezure has made his decision. Scraggy waits, terrified. Kezure raises his knife towards Scraggy's face.
Your eyes. They're strikingly deep blue.
Scraggy covers his face. Kezure attacks him, trying to cut out his eyes. A fight begins, the crew members versus the pirates. Indiana turns away from the controls. He breaks up the fight.
Enough! Look, we're in this together. If we start fighting amongst ourselves, we'll never get out alive.
The men calm down, catching their breath. Kezure puts away his knife and glares at Scraggy.
You owe me, old man.
Exterior mountain. The tank without a driver begins to swerve off the mountain road. Interior tank. Clare notices the tank going over the mountain. She screams.
Dr. Jones!
Indy turns, leaping back to the controls. He hurriedly steers the tank back onto the mountain path, saving it at the last moment. Everyone catches their breath. Indiana steps on the gas, continuing ahead. Cut to exterior mountain a few hours later. The tank has nearly made it to the top of the mountain, trekking through a narrow, rocky ravine. The tank rolls to a stop. The top hatch flips open. Indiana, Scraggy, and Tyke pop out. Tyke suddenly points to the mountaintop, which is cloaked in thick layers of clouds. Tyke's eyes filled with joyous tears. He begins to shout. His voice squeals with excitement. Scraggy translates for Indy.
He says that 2 miles ahead, we will find his home.
Indiana smiles, excited by the prospect, touched by Tyke's reaction. Indy looks to the foot of the mountain. Several miles below, the Nazi forces have arrived. They're still at least 2 hours from reaching Indiana and the others. The massive army moves fast. They begin to drive along the mountain path, following Indiana in hot pursuit. Indy pauses, worried, thinking. He looks at the surrounding rocky walls, then to the tank's enormous gun barrel. An idea. He hurries back inside of the tank. Scraggy and Tyke follow, closing the hatch above him. Interior tank. Indy looks at the tank's control panel. Puzzled, he looks at Gutterbuhg.
How do I work the big gun?
Gutterbuhg smiles. He refuses to answer. Indy has no time for games. He looks at Kezure.
Want your souvenir? Start with the good arm.
Kezure smiles and removes his long knife. He moves it to Gutterbugh's neck. The sniveling Nazi cries out.
Wait, please.
Indy nods to Kezure. The Pirate King moves his knife. Gutterbuhg hurriedly points to 2 switches on the control panel.
There. That is what you want.
Indy nods. He turns to the switches. Exterior ravine. Close up on the tank's large gun barrel swiveling, pointing upward to the rocks above. The gun fires a shot. It swivels a few feet, then fires another and another. A rumbling sound echoes through the area. Interior tank. Indy hits the gas. Exterior ravine. The tank shoots forward, speeding ahead. An avalanche begins, just missing the tank. Several pounds of rocks and debris fall from above. The rocks create a thick wall, blocking the mountain path. The tank continues along the twisting, narrow mountain path. Moving further and further upward, the tank disappears into the thick clouds that surround the mountain. In the tank, Indiana looks through the periscope, his view blinded by the clouds. Exterior mountain. The tank has a large gray blur through the clouds. Several dark, bulking figures appear. They climb along the ravine's sides and tops. The mysterious figures surround the tank. All are holding enormous boulders over their heads, aimed at the tank. In the tank, Indy eases up on the gas. The tank slows. Suddenly there is a loud crash. The tank is hit, rattling, shaking. Everyone is tossed, save for Indy, who stays at the controls. He continues to guide the tank forward. There's another crash, and another, and another. Exterior mountain. The dark figures shower the tank with heavy boulders. The tank's gun barrel snaps in two. Headlights smash. Its body becomes dented, cracked. Interior tank. Indiana is tough, persistent. He continues to move the jolting tank forward. As the surrounding walls cave in, shatter, everyone panics, screaming. Exterior mountain. The injured, wobbling tank moves out of the clouds, arriving around the corner from the mountaintop. The countless dark figures continue to follow the tank, scurrying along the ravine sides and tops. The figures emerge from the clouds. For the first time, they are visible, and we see that the figures are tall, hairy, muscular gorillas. They continue to assault the tank with boulders. In the tank, Indiana still attempts to move the tank forward, but the engine begins to cough, sputter, and dies. Exterior mountain. The tank comes to a sudden stop. One of the gorillas emits a high-pitched shriek, communicating with the others. The others pause. They stop the attack. The gorillas approach the tank, slowly, cautiously. The apes reach out, touching the tank's wrecked body. A few of the apes begin to climb onto the tank. The tank's top hatch flips open. Indy's head pops out. Two hairy arms reach into frame and grab Indiana. An enormous gorilla pulls Indy out of the hatch. The ape tosses Indy off screen. Indiana flies into the air. He lands in the arms of another gorilla. The ape takes Indy's whip and throws him to another gorilla, who takes Indy's hat. The gorilla tosses Indy to another ape, who tears off Indy's leather jacket. The helpless Indy is thrown to yet another gorilla. The angry ape raises Indy over his head. The gorilla prepares to throw Indiana off of the mountain's edge. Taiki's voice erupts from off screen. The gorilla pauses, suspending Indiana high in the air. The gorilla turns to Taiki. The pygmy stands on the tank. He shouts an order to the gorilla. The ape nods. Understanding, he knows Taiki. The gorilla gently places Indy back on the ground. Indiana adjusts what remains of his clothing. He turns, seeing a group of gorillas huddled together. The gorillas separate. They have dressed one of the apes in Indiana's hat, leather jacket, and whip. The ape begins to snap the whip almost as if we were imitating Indy. Scraggy, Betsy, Clare, and the others have climbed out of the tank. Upon seeing the gorilla dressed as Indy, they burst into laughter. A very angry Indiana growls at Taiki.
Tell them to take off my stuff.
Through laughter, Scraggy translates for Taiki. The pygmy shouts an order to the gorilla. The ape removes the hat and leather jacket, reluctantly giving them back to a grumbling Indiana. Taiki continues to shoot orders to the other gorillas. The pygmy suddenly appears strong, authoritative. He obviously has power over the beast. The gorillas gather together. They move toward the people. The apes gently take the hands of the various humans. It's a warm, enchanting sight as the friendly gorillas lead the humans forward. Clare, using her gorilla motions and sounds, communicates with the beast. The group moves around a twisting corner of the path toward the mountaintop. Around the corner, Indiana and the others are met with an awesome sight. Indy stops. His mouth drops open. Clare is equally astounded. Betsy and the others stare ahead in total wonderment. Even Gutterbuhg is amazed. The soundtrack music explodes into a thundering crescendo. The lost city of Sun Wukong lies ahead of the group. A spectacular sight. A city whose every building and tower is cast in solid gold, sparkling, glistening, a heavenly place. The city is protected by a deep moat. The fins of several sharks move through the moat waters. A thick stone wall surrounds the city. A large golden drawbridge is built into the wall, a passageway into the city. A tremendous tower stretches above the city walls. The guard, a pygmy similar to Taiki, is posted in the tower. The guard spots Taiki approaching the city walls. The guard's eyes light. He smiles. The guard cries out, shouting to everyone inside of the city. He continues to repeat a certain phrase. Scraggy translates the guard's words for Indiana.
He says, our prince has returned home.
Indiana smiles. Soon the beautiful sound of countless ringing bells is heard, welcoming Taiki home. Eyes watering, a proud Taiki and the gorillas lead everyone to the foot of the city walls. The enormous drawbridge begins to lower. A stunning shaft of golden light escapes from the opening. As the drawbridge continues to lower, the shaft of light becomes wider, brighter. It illuminates the faces of Indy and the others. When the drawbridge is completely lowered, everyone is led into the city, their bodies silhouetted against the warm, glowing light. In the city, we enter with Indy and the others. The city is bursting with the bright colors of various vegetable and fruit gardens and various other exotic plant life. Luscious green grass and crystal clear lakes surround many of the homes. The earthen streets are literally paved with gold. The men and women of the city are members of Taiki's race. Asian pygmies, there is a peaceful, joyous quality about them. They rush toward Taiki, embracing him, showering him with kisses, welcoming him home. Indian and the others are in awe of this new world. Gutterbuhg walks with them. Camera pans to his hands. He struggles to untie his bindings. Kezure spots something, a small, solid gold garden tool. Lying in a vegetable garden, Kezure's eyes fill with greed. He moves to steal the can. Kezure grabs the tool and begins to hide it beneath his cloak. A large gorilla's hand grabs Kezure's arm, towering over the Pirate King. The gorilla waves his finger at Kezure. A warning, no stealing. The nervous Kezure nods. He places the garden tool back on the ground. Meanwhile, Angi and the others are led to an elaborate palace. They ascend the several golden stairs toward the entrance. The palace doors open. An older man steps outside. He is Bobala, the city's ruler. A few palace guards stand beside him. Bobala raises his arms over the crowd. Pygmies and gorillas drop to their knees in reverence. Taiki runs to Bobala. They embrace. Tears of joy fill their eyes. Bobala wipes away his tears. He gives a warm smile to Indiana and the others. He speaks softly in a wise voice. Scraggy translates for the others.
He thanks us for returning his son.
Indiana and the others smile. Betsy whispers to Indy.
Hey, if the little guy is pushing 200 years, how old's his father?
Indy motions for Betsy to shh. Bobala continues to speak. Scraggy translates.
His name is Bobala. He's the ruler of the city, faithful servant of his lord and master, Sun Wukong. He welcomes us to stay, as long as we wish.
Indiana exchanges a hopeful glance with Clare. As Bobala continues to speak, camera pans to Gutterbuhg. The Nazi has successfully untied his bindings, free. While the others listen to Wobala, Gutterbuhg removes one spare bullet from his mouth. He slyly inserts the bullet into his mechanical arm. Indiana is too concerned with Wobala to notice Gutterbuhg.
Ask him where we find the burial place or the remains of Sun Wukong.
Scraggy turns to ask Wobala, but his question is interrupted by Gutterbuhg's mechanical arm. It extends into frame, its finger pointed at Indiana. Everyone stares, shocked, but the bizarre sight greatly amuses Wobala. He begins to laugh. He reaches out and pushes Gutterbuhg's finger away, but the machine gun goes off firing. Oh, Wobala is hit in the chest. He falls. Taiki kneels, cradling Wobala's head in his arms. Taiki calls his father's name. It is futile. Wobala is dead. The crowd of villagers stare, confused. They are unaccustomed to violence. Indiana clutches Gutterbuhg by the throat.
Bastard!
Indiana pulls back his fist to punch the Nazi, but Indy is stopped by the palace guards. They move their swords to his throat. Indy is suddenly puzzled. The villagers fall to their knees, bowing to Gutterbuhg. A distraught Taiki hurriedly explains to Scraggy, who translates for Indy.
It is written, if a ruler is defeated by great power, he who possesses that power shall become ruler.
And was Gutterbuhg's eyes fill with a sadistic thrill. He raises his mechanical arm in a Heil Hitler pose. The entire city imitates the Nazi, raising their right arms, cheering, hailing their new leader. Indiana is horrified by the scene. Taiki is upset, screaming. He knows that Gutterbuhg is truly evil, but none of the villagers listen. Indiana looks to his shocked friends.
It's turning into one hell of a nightmare.
One you will never awaken from, Dr. Jones.
Andy glares at Gutterbuhg. Clare and Betsy exchange a frightened glance. Cut to interior palace, ruler's chamber. A beautiful, expansive chamber filled with tapestries and artwork. Gutterbuhg sits in an elaborate golden throne. He has donned a ghoulish new outfit, the robes of Wobala, the dead ruler. Gutterbuhg is being attended upon by several villagers who bring him countless plates of food. He is surrounded by several women who patiently wait for his orders. Gutterbuhg gobbles down the variety of food and wine, drooling, slobbering. Scraggy kneels before the Nazi. Gutterbuhg uses Indiana's whip as a leash. It is tied around Scraggy's neck and held by the Nazi. Gutterbuhg pulls the leash hard, nearly strangling Scraggy. His mouth filled with food, Gutterbuhg screams at Scraggy.
I want to see Jones!
Scraggy translates for the guards. Interior dungeon, dark, musty, surrounded with moss-covered stone walls. Located beneath the palace. Indy and the others are locked inside. Everyone is silent, staring, waiting. Clare consoles a tearful, despondent Taiki. The dungeon gate opens. The two guards enter. They drag Indiana out of the dungeon. Betsy calls out to Indy, trying to follow, but the guards slam the wooden door in Betsy's face. She peers through the small barred window, worried, upset. Interior palace. Indiana is led into the ruler's chamber. Indy sees Scraggy tied to a leash. An angry, vengeful look covers Indy's face. He turns to Gutterbuhg. The Nazi, still stuffing his face with food, pulls tightly on Scraggy's leash.
Your friend makes a wonderful interpreter.
Indy's eyes burn. Gutterbuhg gulps on a glass of wine. Liquid spittles from the sides of his mouth. He looks at Indy.
The Nazi Party will exist for 1,000 years, and I wish to be alive for every year. That is the favorite philosophy of our Führer.
Your Führer's philosophy belong on a bathroom wall.
This is a very serious matter, Dr. Jones. It could save your life. I understand that somewhere in this city there is my French, there's un garden of immortal peaches. I want information about this garden, and I would greatly appreciate it if you would share everything you know with me.
I don't share anything with Nazis.
Gutterbuhg nods. He takes another bite of food, shooting a glowering look to Indiana.
Very well. My friends will be here soon. They will rest and enjoy the pleasures of my newfound kingdom. Then we shall exterminate these worthless people, destroy their city, and we will carry away all its riches in pieces.
Gutterbuhg goes back to his food. Scraggy exchanges a worried glance with Indiana. Cut to the Nazi army traveling along the narrow mountain path. They are more than halfway up the mountain. Lieutenant Mephisto rides in the front jeep. He looks to his driver, who reports to Mephisto.
Sir, we shall reach the mountaintop in less than 60 minutes.
Mephisto nods, anxious. Cut to the Lost City, the Colosseum, an enormous stone arena located in the center of the city. It resembles the Roman Colosseum in size and structure. The Colosseum's top walls are surrounded by countless large metal bells. The bells are ringing. They are the same bells we heard earlier, but they now sound eerie, threatening. The many seats are filled with members of the village, all gathered for a special event. Gutterbuhg sits in the elaborate ruler's box. It is covered with a protective golden grating. The box is located directly above the earthen playing field. Andy's whip is still tied around Scraggy's neck, who kneels at Gutterbuhg's feet. Two guards lead a shirtless Indiana Jones onto the playing field. They bring Andy to a steel cage located directly below Gutterbuhg's box. Inside of the cage are two enormous buffalo, angry, restless. Betsy, Clare, Tyche, Kezure, the remaining pirates and crew members all helplessly watch from inside of a large metal cage. The cage is suspended in the air, dangling over a deep pit. It is filled with countless man-eating tigers. Indy is led into the cage between the two buffalo. The guards grab hold of Indiana. They tie one of his arms and one of his legs to each side of the buffalo, preparing to draw and quarter Indiana. A delighted Gutterbuhg peers down at Indiana.
Dr. Jones, those beasts are anxious to run wild, free. How long will you be able to hide before they tear you into two?
Indy looks at Scraggy, who is very frightened.
Goodbye, Dr. Jones.
Gutterbuhg turns to the guards, ready to give them the order to open the cage and set the buffalo free. Indy suddenly screams,
Heil Hitler.
Upon hearing the words, Gutterbuhg stands like a robot. He raises his mechanical arm in a Heil Hitler pose.
Heil Hitler!
The fingers of Gutterbuhg's mechanical arm get caught in the metal grating above his head. Gutterbuhg tries to remove his fingers. No good. Stuck. Gutterbuhg pulls hard. His mechanical arm is ripped from its socket. It dangles from the grating. The crowd watches, puzzled, shocked. Scraggy thinks fast. He leaps to his feet and grabs the arm. He tears it out of the grating. Scraggy holds the arm above his head. Now it is he who possesses the power. The crowd cheers Scraggy, their new ruler. Gutterbuhg steps back, suddenly frightened. Scraggy orders the guards to free Indiana. The guards hurriedly untie Indy from the buffalo. Gutterbuhg turns, running out of the Colosseum. Scraggy screams to the people, motioning for them to follow Gutterbuhg. Several people leap from their seats, chasing the Nazi. Exterior Colosseum, Gutterbuhg dashes out. A crowd of villagers follow him in hot pursuit. Gutterbuhg runs toward the city gates. He runs through, escaping the city. The crowd pauses, stopping. They'll go no further. They scream and shout at the departing Gutterbuhg, who disappears into the mountains. Interior Colosseum. Indiana rejoins his friends on the playing field. They've been freed from the cage. Scraggy gives the whip to Indy. Indy is impatient, worried. He looks at everyone.
Nazis will be here soon. We got to move fast.
Scraggy gives Gutterbuhg's mechanical arm to Tyche. The pygmy nods. He understands. Tyche raises the arm toward the people. They cheer Tyche, their rightful ruler. Tyche pulls back and throws the mechanical arm high into the air. It soars several feet, flying over the Colosseum walls. Exterior city. The arm flies through the air. It lands into the moat. The arm is attacked by a horde of hungry sharks. They tear it to pieces. Cut to exterior mountain path. The Nazis have arrived at the section of path that is blocked by the avalanche. Their other vehicles and troops have pulled back. A few hundred feet from the avalanche, several sticks of dynamite have been placed beneath the avalanche. The TNT is connected to a long fuse that extends along the path. Lieutenant Mephisto stands at the fuse's end. He strikes a match, preparing to light the fuse. The match flare is inches from the fuse. Mephisto is interrupted by a familiar voice. It is Gutterbuhg. Mephisto blows out the match. A soaking wet Sergeant Gutterbuhg slides down the edge of the ravine. He still wears the colorful, elaborate robes of Mobala. Mephisto is puzzled by Gutterbuhg's bizarre appearance. Gutterbuhg stops in front of Mephisto. Gutterbuhg attempts to Heil Hitler, but suddenly realizes that his mechanical arm is gone. Gutterbuhg drips water all over Mephisto, who is disgusted by the appearance of his officer. He slaps Gutterbuhg.
Idiot! Why are you dressed like that? Where is your uniform?
Before he can answer, Gutterbuhg is shoved away by the disgusted Mephisto, who attempts to light the fuse, but his matches are useless. Soaked with water, furious Mephisto slaps Gutterbuhg, ordering him to fetch something. The sniveling Gutterbuhg nods and bows, scurrying away. He runs into the rear of a canvas truck. In the truck, filled with several crates of dynamite and supplies, Gutterbuhg dashes inside toward a silver metallic briefcase that rests in the rear of the truck. Gutterbuhg's greasy fingers open the briefcase. Inside, encased in black velvet, are two rectangular compartments. One of the compartments is empty. The other houses another mechanical arm. Gutterbuhg quickly attaches the arm to the stub of his shoulder and runs back outside. Exterior mountain path. Gutterbuhg rejoins Mephisto and extends his new mechanical arm toward the fuse. Gutterbuhg points his finger. He squeezes a lever located on the palm of the mechanical arm. A bright, jagged line of electrical current shoots from the arm's finger. The electricity lights the fuse. It burns, moving toward the dynamite. Gutterbuhg and Mephisto hide behind a rock. There's a loud explosion. Rocks and debris fly through the air. The path is cleared. Interior city. The sound of the explosion echoes through the city, shaking the city walls. The Nazis are close. Indiana stands in the city square. He has assembled everyone for the battle. Taiki and the pygmies are armed with bows and arrows, spears, and blowpipes. Kezure and the pirates hold their swords. Scraggy's men carry revolvers and daggers. Clare and Betsy stand with several guerrillas. Taiki whispers to Scraggy, who translates for Indiana.
They want you to give a speech.
What?
Before battle, General always gives speech to inspire troops.
General? Who the hell do they think I am? Custer?
But all eyes are on Indiana, depending on it. Andy sighs, trying to think of something to say. He mumbles to Scraggy.
She's the only speeches I remember from college. I played ball.
Scraggy shrugs. Andy clears his throat. He looks at everyone, fumbling.
Men and women, we're about to face one of our toughest opponents. They've got size, hardware, and quite frankly, we're the underdogs.
Andy's eyes light, a moment of inspiration. The background music slowly begins to rise. Andy's voice becomes louder, tougher.
Well, if it wasn't for the little guy, where would this country be? I mean, I knew this little guy once, scrawny runt with his thick black glasses and about 300 different kinds of allergies. But this little kid had a dream. He wanted to be on the football team. All the big guys made his life miserable, always shoving his head into the drinking fountain, putting mustard in his pants, throwing him in the shower with his clothes on. But that little guy didn't quit. He worked hard, never gave up, and in 2 years, he was quarterback, started the team. You know why? Because that little guy had something those big guys never heard of. He had heart, and nothing can stop that. Nothing. Now let's get out there and show them just how tough the little guys are.
Everyone breaks into a round of applause. Hang on. Okay. A loud cheer, ready to fight. The soundtrack music soars. Indiana raises his sword. He turns and runs toward the drawbridge. The people follow as Indy leads them into battle. Exterior city. Indiana, armed with a shield, sword, and pistol, leads his troops forward. The Nazis are approaching. Lieutenant Mephisto rides in the front jeep, which is mounted with a large recoilless machine gun. The entire Nazi army is behind it. Mephisto's jeep begins to cross the drawbridge, moving toward Indiana and the others. The recoilless machine gunner opens fire on Indy and the troops. Bullets bounce from Indy's shield. Several of the pygmies are hit, falling to the drawbridge. An angry pygmy throws his spear. It hits the machine gunner through the heart. The jeep continues to drive forward, headed straight for Indiana, who leaps under the jeep's hood. Indy's troops split into groups, dashing around the speeding jeep to battle the oncoming Nazis. Indiana crawls along the jeep hood toward the Nazis. Mephisto attempts to shoot Indy. The bullets zip through the windshield, whizzing by Indy's head. Indiana grabs Mephisto. He pulls the Nazi over the windshield. Indiana and Mephisto tumble along the jeep's hood, fighting, struggling for the gun. The jeep directly behind Mephisto is filled with several crates of dynamite. Gutterbuhg, back in uniform, rides here with 3 Nazi soldiers. As the pygmy troops come forward, Gutterbuhg extends his mechanical arm. He zaps several of the pygmies, killing them with deadly jolts of electricity. As the jeep passes through the city gates, Indiana and Mephisto continue to battle along the hood. In the city, Mephisto attempts to shoot Indiana, but Indy pushes away the Nazi's arm. The gun fires, hitting the jeep driver, who slumps over the wheel. The speeding jeep spins out of control. It flips, sending Indiana and Mephisto flying through the air. They tumble to the ground. The jeep crashes into a wall. A shaken Indiana gets to his feet. Mephisto lies a few feet away, out cold. Suddenly, a blast of electricity bursts into frame, sparking the ground beside Indiana. Indy turns and sees Gutterbuhg. The Nazi's jeep has entered the city. Gutterbuhg points his mechanical arm towards Indy. Another electrical shock ejects from his finger. Indy dives. The shock tears a smoldering hole through the building behind him, only inches above Indy. Meanwhile, the Nazis begin to unload the dynamite from Gutterbugh's jeep. They unwrap a long section of fuse from a large coil, placing the fuse along the ground. Indiana is running for his life. Gutterbuhg is directly behind him in hot pursuit. The Nazi continuously fires electrical shots at Indiana. The thin lines of electricity whiz by Indy's head, his arms, his legs, just missing him. A cat and mouse chase begins as Gutterbuhg pursues Indiana throughout the city. Cut to Tyche and several pygmies. They have climbed to the top of the city walls. From here, they guard and defend their city. Crowds of Nazi troops are on foot, running toward the city walls. The pygmies shower the Nazis with arrows, spears, and poisonous darts. The Nazis fight back with machine guns and rifles. A heated, bloody battle. Cut to Scraggy and the crew members. They stand at the city gate, protecting the city entrance. They hurriedly load a large wooden catapult with a huge ball of hay. A crew member torches the hay. It bursts into flame. Scraggy cries, "Fire!" His men launch the fireball. It sails over the city walls. The fireball lands directly onto a speeding Nazi jeep. The Nazis in jeep catch fire. The vehicle loses control. The flaming jeep crashes into the side of a mountain wall. Cut to a Nazi tank rolls toward the city. Its gun barrel aimed at the city walls. Camera pans away several feet ahead of the tank. Camera moves upward to the mountaintop above the path. Clare is here. A group of gorillas are beside her. The apes each have a tight hold of individual sections of hanging vine. They stand at the edge of the ravine. Clare looks to the opposite ravine. Betsy is here. She stands with another group of gorillas who also securely hold lengths of vine. On the mountain path, the Nazi tank passes directly beneath Betsy and Clare. The two women turn to the gorilla. Emitting gorilla grunts, moans, and motions, Betsy and Clare communicate with the apes. The gorillas listen, nodding, understanding. When the tank is directly below, Betsy and Clare order the gorillas to jump. The apes swing from the mountain, riding the vines toward the tank. The gorillas land on the tank. They climb aboard, exploring the tank's surface. Interior tank filled with Nazis. The gunner looks into the periscope. He is met with a reflection of a snarling gorilla's face. He screams and jumps back. There is a sound of ripping metal. Suddenly, the tank's top hatch is torn open. Countless gorillas pour inside. The apes attack, overpowering the Nazis. Exterior tank. As the gorillas climb inside of the tank, Betsy swings across the passageway to Clare. She exchanges a congratulatory handshake with her. Betsy's face suddenly goes white, a shocking sight. A group of Nazis have climbed to the mountaintop. The soldiers spot Clare and Betsy. They run toward the women. Betsy and Clare dash off into the thick of the jungle. The Nazis follow in hot pursuit. Cut to two large canvas trucks barreling along the mountain path. Kezure, the Pirate King, leaps from the side of the path between the two trucks. Kezure climbs onto the rear bumper of the first truck. The driver of the second truck spots Kezure. He begins to fire shots at the Pirate King. As bullets whiz by him, Kezure hurriedly removes a thick metal chain from around his neck. He securely connects the two truck bumpers with the chain. In the second truck, filled with Nazi troops, seated, armed, waiting to fight, there is a sudden ripping sound, followed by another and another. The Nazis are startled to see the blades of countless swords piercing the canvas. Through all sides of the truck, several pirates leap through the canvas, attacking the Nazis. The Nazis fight back with bayonets and daggers. Interior first truck, cabin. Two pirates burst into the cabin. They stab the Nazi driver. The cackling pirates take control of the steering wheel. They madly steer the truck toward the steep edge of the mountain path. The first truck plummets over the edge. The second truck, attached by the metal chain, follows the first truck. The two canvas trucks fall into the moat, splashing into the shark-infested waters. Cut to the city. The Nazis have planted an enormous pile of dynamite on the palace stairs, enough to destroy the entire city. The TNT is attached to a long fuse that stretches hundreds of feet over various sections of the city. The Nazis light the fuse end. It sparks, ignites, burning fast. The Nazis turn and run. Gutterbuhg continues to chase Indiana. Blasts of electricity shoot from the Nazi's arm. Indy ducks, dodges, avoiding the electrical jolts. Indy spins around a building corner. He spots the burning fuse. It stretches along the ground, moving up over a wooden fence. Indy dives and stomps out the fuse. The Gutterbuhg, who is directly behind him, relights the fuse with a shot of electricity. Before Indy has a chance to stop the fuse, Gutterbuhg aims at Indy. Indy leaps over the fence. Gutterbuhg shoots. The fence is splintered by the powerful electrical blast. Indiana runs into a small alleyway. The burning fuse stretches up along the alley wall, moving to the rooftop. Indy begins to climb the ancient golden bricks that protrude from the wall toward the roof. Gutterbuhg appears. He shoots at Indiana, who avoids the blast by leaping onto it. Gutterbuhg hurriedly begins to climb the wall, following Indiana. Exterior rooftop. Gutterbuhg arrives at the top. He looks around. There is no sign of Indy, but the fuse rests at the roof's edge, unlit. Gutterbuhg restarts the fuse. At that moment, Indiana leaps out from inside of the stone smokestack. He jumps the unsuspecting Gutterbuhg. They tumble and fall off the rooftop edge. Indiana and Gutterbuhg hit the ground. They continue to struggle, fight as the fuse burns in front of them. It speeds toward the pile of dynamite, less than 50 feet ahead. Still wrestling with Gutterbuhg, Indy rolls toward the fuse. Indy reaches out and stops the fuse with his hand, but Gutterbuhg moves fast. Again, the Nazi relights the fuse. Indy suddenly leaps to his feet. He runs off screen. Gutterbuhg follows. The fuse continues to burn, moving closer to the dynamite. Indiana runs to a cluster of trees. He comes to an abrupt stop between two trees. Gutterbuhg is upon him. The Nazi pauses only a few feet from Indy. Gutterbuhg points his arm at Indy. A clear shot. Gutterbuhg smiles. Indiana is trapped. The fuse is now only a few feet from the dynamite. It will blow at any second. Gutterbuhg shoots. Moving like lightning, Indy leaps out of the way, revealing a large lake behind him. It's too late for Gutterbuhg. The electrical current hits the water. The Nazi's body surges with electricity. Gutterbuhg fries. He shivers, shakes, frozen as the powerful electrical current flows through his veins. Smoke billows from his body. His mechanical arm suddenly explodes. Gutterbuhg's charred body falls face down, electrocuted. Indiana leaps to his feet, suddenly remembering the fuse. It is now inches from the TNT. Indy can't get to it in time. He grabs his whip. His arm snaps forward. The whip cracks. It slices the remaining fuse in two. The fuse fizzles and goes out. The city is saved. Indy sighs. There's a gunshot. A bullet whizzes by his head. He turns. Mephisto, bruised and bloody from the Jeep accident, stands several feet away. Mephisto's Luger is aimed at Indy, prepared to take another shot. Indy removes his revolver. He fires at Mephisto. The Nazi dashes into the Coliseum. Indiana follows. Cut to Taiki battling the oncoming Nazis with his sword. Taiki fights hard, fast. He manages to defeat many Nazis, but the sword is suddenly knocked from his hand. A troop of Nazis come toward him. Their eyes murderous. Taiki is trapped, helpless. Interior city. Scraggy and his crew members load another fireball onto the catapult. Scraggy cries, "Fire!" The fireball flies over the city walls. It lands directly in front of the Nazi troops who are about to attack Taiki. Many of the soldiers catch fire. The others run from the flames. Taiki is unhurt. He rejoins his friends in the battle. Cut to Clare and Betsy, breathless, frightened. They continue to run through the jungle. The Nazis are a few feet behind them, moving fast, getting closer. The women turn a corner, scramble through a section of bushes, and find themselves face to face with another troop of Nazis. Claire and Betsy stop, trapped, surrounded by Nazis. The soldiers move toward the women. The Nazis' eyes are lecherous and hungry. Claire whispers to a trembling Betsy,
Do exactly what I do.
Betsy nods. The Nazis move closer. Claire looks to the sky. She begins to make bizarre, high-pitched noises. A confused Betsy makes the same noises. The Nazis look at each other and chuckle. The women continue to make the sounds. Suddenly, the exact sound seems to echo from the sky. It becomes louder, louder, but it belongs to 100 voices. The Nazis pause, looking upward, puzzled. There is a splattering of birds. They attack from above. The birds' screeching is identical to Claire and Betsy's calls. The angry birds attack the Nazis, pecking, scratching, biting. Claire and Betsy continue to make the sounds, which causes the birds to ignore them. The Nazis scream, dropping their weapons, falling to their knees. Each soldier is covered with birds. They are being torn to shreds. Claire and Betsy turn and run, escaping into the jungle. The Nazis' screaming echoes behind them. As they run, Claire explains to Betsy.
I made the sound of a baby Swandola bird crying for help. The mother birds immediately replied to the cries, angrily protecting their children and murdering the baby's attackers.
Cut to the two canvas trucks. They crookedly float along the shark-infested moat waters. The battered, bruised trucks now resemble two sinking pirate ships. Kezure and the pirates battle the Nazis along the truck frames. The pirates fight in their element. Water. With fast swinging swords, the pirates are defeating the Nazis. Several Nazis fall into the water and are immediately attacked by countless sharks. At one point, Kezure falls into the water. Several sharks come for him. The pirate king disappears beneath the water's surface. A few of his men pause, worried, afraid. Suddenly, Kezure leaps out of the water. He holds a live shark in his hands. The crazed Kezure takes a bite from the shark. He tosses the fish back into the water. Kezure chews and swallows the raw shark meat. Blood spills down his chin. Kezure resumes his fighting with the Nazis as the two truck frames continue to sink. Cut to the tank. Several Nazis are sprawled on the tank floor, unconscious, undressed. Camera pans upward. The guerrillas are taking control of the tank. They have dressed themselves in Nazi uniforms. Exterior tank. As the battle rages around them, the guerrillas' tank makes a sudden U-turn. It heads straight for the second Nazi tank. Interior second tank. The Nazis stare through their periscope, puzzled by the sight of their own tank coming toward them. Exterior tank. The guerrillas' tank fires a direct shot at the other Nazi tank. Blam! The Nazi tank is blown to smithereens. Interior guerrilla tank. The guerrillas break into a victorious cheer, jumping, screaming. Cut to the Coliseum. Indiana walks across the Coliseum floor, revolver in hand. He moves slowly, cautiously. He's looking for a sign of Mephisto, but everything is silent, calm, deserted. Mephisto sneaks along the top wall of the Coliseum, hiding behind the row of surrounding bells. The Nazi unlatches the chain that holds all of the bells in place. The bells begin to fall, thundering down the Coliseum stairs. Andy covers his ears. The sound of countless clanging bells is nearly deafening. He turns, seeing the enormous bells rolling toward him. Indiana begins to run. Giant rolling bells chase him from all directions. Andy twists, turns, leaps, in an effort to avoid being crushed by the heavy bells. Mephisto watches from above, smiling. Andy continues to run. A giant rolling bell chases him from behind. The bell gains speed, getting closer, closer. A few feet in front of Andy is the deadly tiger pit. But Andy can't stop running or he'll be crushed by the bell. Indiana leaps into the pit. The bell rolls directly over the pit. But Indiana is safe. There's a 5-inch drop from the ground to the pit's overhead metal bars. Indy lies in the bars, safely above the countless tigers. The bells have all come to a stop. They lie around the Coliseum ground, still. Only one bell gently rocks. It slowly teeters on the Coliseum stairs. It hasn't yet rolled off. Indiana begins to climb out of the pit when suddenly another gunshot rings out. Indy is hit in the chest. He slips, falls. His wounded body is sprawled on the bars, teetering, ready to fall into the waiting tigers. Mephisto's Luger is smoking. The Nazi walks down the Coliseum stairs. He moves toward Indiana. Seeing Mephisto heading for him, Indiana removes his gun. He aims at the Nazi, but Indy's vision is blurred. His hand trembles. Mephisto's silhouette mirrors, but the bullet zips past Mephisto and strikes a section of wood below the teetering bell. This causes the bell to fall and slowly roll forward. Mephisto arrives at the edge of the tiger pit. He is about to shoot Indy, then comes upon another idea. Mephisto lowers the Luger. He gives a swift kick to Indy's ribs. Indiana falls through the bars. His arm shoots out. With his last bit of strength, Indy's hand grabs hold of a bar, clutching on for dear life. His body dangles over the tigers. They snap at his legs, hungry, growling. Mephisto smiles. He steps on Indy's fingers, grinding them beneath his boot heel. Indy cries out. He's going to fall. Mephisto pauses. He hears something behind him, a clanging bell, getting closer, louder. Mephisto turns. He sees the giant bell coming at him, only inches away. There's no time to move. The bell rolls over Mephisto, knocking him into the pit. Mephisto falls through the bars, inside the pit, into the middle of the hungry tigers. Mephisto screams. The tigers are upon him. The Nazi is ripped to shreds. Within seconds, his screams are a memory. A very weak Indiana still clutches the bar. He manages to boost himself out of the pit. He takes a few steps, wobbling. Blood pours from the wound in his chest. He stumbles to his knees. His eyes roll back. He falls to the ground. His body is still, motionless. Cut to the tank. The guerrillas, still dressed as Nazis, continue to drive the tank forward. Exterior tank. The tank speeds toward the rows of charging Nazi troops. The Nazis stop, shocked to see their own tank coming at them. But the tank continues to barrel ahead. Many of the Nazis are crushed beneath the heavy tank treads. Others drop their weapons and run, frightened. In the tank, the guerrillas are ecstatic, howling, cheering. Cut to Kezure and the pirates. They have defeated all the Nazis. One of the canvas trucks is completely sunk. Only a small section of the other truck juts out of the water. The pirates cling to the fleeting safety of the sinking truck frame, which is surrounded by several hungry sharks. There are even too many man-eaters for the powerful Kezure to handle. As the frame continues to sink, the pirate's feet gets closer to the snapping sharks. Suddenly, a rope drops from overhead. Kezure looks up. Scraggy and his crew members stand on the drawbridge. They have dropped the line. Kezure and the pirates climb upwards to safety. On the drawbridge, Scraggy assists Kezure. Scraggy smiles, repeating Kezure's earlier threat.
You owe me, old man.
Kezure laughs. He embraces Scraggy. They are joined by Taiki and the other picnics. A sudden calm, a sudden silence overcomes the city. The battle is ended. The Nazis have been defeated. The city is saved. But Taiki is solemn, distressed. He stares off screen. Camera pans to his POV. We see the countless bodies of pygmies, sprawled on the ground, dead. The price you pay for freedom. Suddenly the silence is interrupted. Someone is crying. It's Betsy. Scraggy looks off screen in the direction of the sounds. The color leaves his face. Scraggy's POV. A group of pygmies carry the limp body of Indiana Jones out of the Coliseum. They gently lower Indy's body to the ground. Claire and Betsy kneel beside Indy. Tears run down Betsy's face. Scraggy suddenly breaks away from the crowd. Camera dollies with him as he runs toward Indy. Scraggy stops in Indy's body. Claire, eyes filled with tears, nods to Scraggy. She can barely utter the words.
He's dead.
Tears erupt in Scraggy's eyes. He breaks down crying. A startled Kezure joins the others. Camera pulls back to an extremely long shot. The entire village gathers around Indiana's body. Everyone is solemn, silent. A slow dissolve, close up on Indiana's body. It is lying in state, resting on a bamboo stretcher. It is covered with exotic, colorful flowers. Camera pulls back. Indy is being carried by several elaborately dressed pygmies at the head of a long funeral procession. Betsy, Claire, Scraggy, and Kezure march beside Indy's body. They also wear the ceremonial funeral flowers. Behind them, the body of Bobala is being carried. And behind the ruler, the bodies of all dead pygmies are being carried by the remaining villagers and guerrillas. It is nighttime. All mourners are carrying flickering candles. At the rear of the procession, a lone pygmy strums an unusual string instrument, which creates a haunting melody. Camera pulls back to a long shot as we see the procession move through the city. The hundreds of flickering candles against the dark night sky create a beautiful image. The procession arrives at a large stone wall. It appears to be a dead end. Taiki walks to the wall. He falls to his knees and begins to chant. Claire, Betsy, Scraggy, and Kezure watch. There is a small rumble. A hairline crack begins to form in the mountain. As if it were being drawn by an invisible hand, the crack forms a large door in the wall. The door slowly opens. An almost blinding white light emanates from inside. Taiki enters. The procession follows. Interior wall. The procession ascends a twisting stone staircase that spirals upward, where the light becomes brighter, brighter. At the stairway top, there is another doorway. Taiki and the others enter. Indiana's body is carried through the Garden of Immortal Peaches, a breathtakingly beautiful forest of never-ending luscious green trees filled with succulent ripe peaches. We have never seen colors like this, so magical, so intense. Bright sunlight shines from a vivid blue sky. There is always a rainbow here. The procession enters. Scraggy, Claire, Betsy, and Kezure stare in total wonderment. Betsy is puzzled by the bright sunlight.
But it's the middle of the night.
Taiki whispers to Scraggy, who explains to Betsy.
Sun always shines in the Garden of Immortal Peaches.
Claire nods. Kezure is mesmerized by the peach trees. His mouth hangs open. He turns to Scraggy.
These are the peaches that make one young forever?
Scraggy nods. Taiki leads the procession to a clearing in the garden. Many freshly dug graves are here. All of the bodies are carried to separate graves, including Indiana and Bobala. A few feet ahead of the graves rests the largest peach tree in the forest. It is much wider and taller than the others. There is a small glass-encased tomb built into the tree. Inside of the tomb is a tiny skeleton, no more than 4 feet tall. The skeleton is adorned with a lion-skinned robe and golden crown. In its hand, the skeleton clutches the famous golden hooped rod, a glorious, elaborate staff. An ancient inscription is etched in stone over the tomb. Pointing to the inscription, Claire turns to Scraggy.
What does it say?
Our Lord, our Master, Sun Wukong,
The soundtrack music rises. It is the tomb of the Stone Monkey King. Claire exchanges an awe-inspired glance with Betsy, then looks to the still body of Indiana.
Damn you, Jones. Why couldn't you be here to share this with me?
The pygmies begin to lower the dead bodies, including Indiana and Bobala, into the ground. Tyche reads from ancient scripture. Scraggy sobs on the shoulder of Kezure, who continues to stare in astonishment at the peach trees. Suddenly there is a rumbling sound, followed by a slight tremor. The trees begin to sway as a howling wind rushes through them. The tomb of Sun Wukong glows with a bright light. The glass surrounding the tomb suddenly shatters. The skeleton's head turns, its body rattles, beginning to move. The skeleton steps out of the tomb. Everyone stares in awe, terrified. The skeleton takes a few steps forward, stops, and raises its arms. High in the air, the skeleton opens its mouth, emitting a high-pitched, unearthly screech. An ectoplasmic green smoke seeps from the skeleton's fingers, slowly traveling over the heads of the humans. The ectoplasm separates into several individual lines to touch down upon each of the gorillas. The ectoplasm encircles each of the gorillas' bodies. The gorillas begin to rise from the ground, high in the air. The ectoplasm appears to be carrying them towards Sun Wukong. As the gorillas travel through the air, their bodies begin to shrink, growing smaller, thinner. The humans stare into the sky, watching the amazing magical transformation. As the gorillas get closer to Sun Wukong, their bodies have shrunken to tiny hair-like substances. When the gorillas arrive at the skeleton, they attach themselves to his body. We see that the shrunken gorillas are actually individual hairs in the skeleton's body. As the countless hairs converge, the skeleton begins to take shape, form. Sun Wukong comes to life. He is unlike anyone or anything we have ever seen. Half human, half monkey. His face is covered with wrinkles. His wide eyes are coal black, probing, warm. When he smiles, it is devilish but incredibly charming. His movements are perky, quick, an extremely adorable little fellow, instantly lovable. But there is a strong, powerful presence about him. He is indeed a heavenly figure. Sun Wukong looks over the congregation. Everyone falls to their knees. Clare, Betsy, Scraggy, and a reluctant Kezure do the same. Sun Wukong paces through the clearing. He looks into the many graves. He is distressed, troubled. His wrinkled face twists into furious expression. He raises his golden hooped rod to the sky. He screams. His old voice creaks and groans.
We cannot bury these men! This is a garden of life, not of death!
Betsy whispers to Clare.
I have so many questions. But why is he speaking in English?
He's a heavenly being. According to legend, when a heavenly being speaks, men of all countries can understand him. We hear him in English. The pygmies hear him in their language.
Betsy nods. Sun Wukong continues his heartfelt scream into the heavens.
Return their souls! I demand it! Return their souls!
A few moments pass. Then a thick white cloud eclipses the sun. A small hole in the cloud allows one ray of sunlight to shine through. The ray shines down upon one particular peach tree. Sun Wukong turns to that peach tree. He raises the golden hooped rod toward the tree. He begins to sing an unusual hymn. Suddenly, several peaches magically fly from the trees. They congregate above the golden hooped rod. The peaches spin in midair. With quick movements of the rod, Sun Wukong sends several peaches flying off screen. Camera follows the magical peaches as they separate and fly into each grave, toward the bodies of the dead pygmies. Each body is hit with an individual peach. When the peaches make contact with the dead bodies, there is a small colorful explosion, a small fireworks display. The bodies erupt with a bright golden glow. A few moments pass. One of the bodies stirs, moves. The body sits up, gets to its feet. Another body does the same. So does another, and another. Soon the various pygmies climb out of the graves. Their wounds have disappeared. Their life has been restored. Sun Wukong flings the remaining two peaches into the graves of Indiana and Bobala. There is a small explosion, followed by the warm glow of their bodies. The wound in Indy's chest vanishes. His eyes pop open to the delight of his friends. Indy stands alive. He is puzzled by the surrounding grave. Clare, Scraggy, and Betsy help Indiana out of the grave. They shower him with embraces and kisses, but Indy remains confused, puzzled.
What the hell is going on?
Great question. Sun Wukong, looking very pleased with himself, stands behind Indiana. Claire smiles at Indy.
I think there's someone you should meet.
Claire points to behind Indy, who turns and sees the smiling Sun Wukong. Indy is at first shocked. His face breaks into a childlike smile, filled with delight. He then manages to utter,
You're Sun Wukong?
Sun Wukong steps forward. He nods and answers.
You're Indiana Jones?
You know me?
I have watched you for many, many years from the heavens. I was fascinated by your bravery, your passion in searching for me.
Thanks. I'm very honored.
The honor is mine, Dr. Jones. You and your friends have saved my city from ruin. I would like to return the favor.
Sun Wukong gives Indiana the golden hoop rod. Indiana takes the priceless artifact. He stares at the beautiful rod. He's very moved, speechless. Sun Wukong explains, raises an eyebrow.
The golden hooped rod will be a faithful friend. It is capable of 100 transformations and will always remain by your side.
Indy manages to nod. Sun Wukong sighs.
I will explore the heavens for another. Surely my search will be shorter and less hazardous than yours.
Indiana smiles. Meanwhile, Kezure uses the opportunity to sneak away. He disappears into a cluster of peach trees. He climbs the smallest tree. The greedy Pirate King begins to pick several peaches, hiding them in his pockets. Sun Wukong looks over the healthy, restored community of pygmies. The Monkey King smiles.
With my city alive again, I will be able to return to the heavens. Goodbye, my dear friends.
Sun Wukong again raises his arms. Green ectoplasm again emanates from his fingers. The individual strands of hair fly from his body. In a reversal of what we saw only moments ago, the strands of hair fly through the air. They grow larger, larger, until they resume the shape of the gorillas. Sun Wukong has returned to his skeletal form. He turns and walks back to his resting place. The pieces of broken glass reassemble, sealing the tomb. Kezure, his pockets stuffed with peaches, hurriedly rejoins the others. Taiki embraces Bobala, glad to have his father alive. Bobala, resuming his position as ruler, leads his people out of the garden. Indiana, clutching his golden hoop prize, exits with the others. Cut to exterior city gates the following morning. Indiana, Clare, Betsy, Scraggy, Kezure, the pirates and crew members have gathered outside of the city walls for the journey home. They are saying goodbye to Taiki, Bobala, and the other pygmies. Clare and Taiki exchange a tearful farewell, communicating in hand signals. They share a final embrace. Bobala again thanks Indiana for his help. Betsy says goodbye to the many gorillas. Betsy communicates in gorilla hand motions and growls. Indiana, holding the golden hoop rod, turns and moves across the drawbridge. The others follow. The entire city of pygmies and gorillas cheer for their departing friends. Indy and the others disappear into the clouds, walking down the mountain path. The lost city glistens in the background. The drawbridge closes until the next visitor arrives. Resolved to exterior mountain path a few hours later. Early afternoon, the sun is hot, scorching. Indy and his party rest. They nap in a shady section of the path. Camera pans the snoozing bodies of everyone, coming to a stop at Indiana. The golden hoop rod rests beside Indy. A hand comes into frame and grabs the staff. Other hands move into frame. They steal Indy's whip and revolver. They take all weapons from Scraggy and his crew members. Indiana is awakened by a sword at his throat. Indy reaches for his gun and whip. Gone. He looks up. Kezure stands over him, holding the sword in one hand, the golden rod in another. Indy turns. The other pirates hold swords and daggers in the throats of Clare, Betsy, Scraggy, and the crew members. Kezure twirls the golden hoop rod in front of him. He smiles at Indiana.
She is a wonderful treasure.
We had a deal.
I have no deals with dead men.
Son of a bitch.
Kezure laughs. He has removed a peach from his pocket. He shines the peach on his cloak and gives a shrug to Indiana.
I am old pirate, Dr. Jones. Did you suddenly expect kindness and fairness? It is not my way of life.
Indy is disgusted. Kezure takes a large bite from the peach. As he chews and swallows, Kezure nods to his men, motioning toward Indy and the others.
Kill them, but save their hair. I will make a coat out of it.
The men move to kill Scraggy, Betsy, Clare, and the crewmen. Suddenly, Kezure emits a loud scream. He grabs his stomach in pain. He falls to his knees. Rolls from his hand onto the ground. Indy and Clare rush toward Kezure. Something very strange is happening to the Pirate King. His hair begins to fall out. His teeth rot. His skin shrivels. His body becomes thinner, spindly. Kezure has begun to rapidly age. He continues to scream in horrible pain. The pirates step away, frightened. The others watch in horror. Kezure's body contorts. His skin withers, flakes. It begins to peel from his bones. His screams fade. His eyeballs roll out of their sockets. Only his skeleton remains. It turns black and crumbles to dust. Only his elaborate clothing remains. The many stolen peaches roll out of his cloak onto the ground. The remaining pirates drop their weapons. They run off down the mountain, scared to death. Indiana holds the half-eaten peach in his hand. Betsy is puzzled.
I thought the peaches promised immortality? Eternal youth?
Yeah, the Garden of Immortal Peach promises life only to those who are pure of heart. Because there was evil. His heart was filled with greed.
Indiana drops the peach to the ground. He grabs his whip, revolver, and golden hoop rod. Scraggy and his crew members retrieve their weapons. Everyone turns, continuing down the mountain path, leaving Kezure's clothes and his several peaches behind. Cut to exterior Mozambique dock a few days later. Passengers board a large ocean liner bound for the United States. Indiana Jones is here, bags packed. He holds a rectangular wooden crate covered with the words fragile. The golden hoop rod is obviously stored inside. Indy is waiting for someone. He impatiently checks his wristwatch, looking around. He grumbles to himself.
Where's Betsy? The boat leaves in 5 minutes.
Suddenly, a horn interrupts. Indy turns to the direction of the sound. It's Scraggy. He's wearing driving goggles. He rides a battered, bruised motorcycle attached to a rickety sidecar. The word taxi is painted on the sidecar's exterior. Scraggy pulls up beside Indiana. Scraggy jumps off the motorcycle. Excitedly, he runs toward Indy.
Oh, Indy. I want to give you something for your journey.
Scraggy fumbles through his pockets. He removes a small bottle of purple liquid. He holds it out to Indy.
Take one drink before bed. It keeps out all the bad spirits.
Indy declines. He flashes a flask of whiskey from inside of his coat pocket.
Thanks, Scraggy. But this will keep out all the bad spirits.
Scraggy shrugs. They are suddenly interrupted.
Indy!
Indiana turns. Betsy and Clare walk toward him. Indy looks at Betsy, puzzled.
Where are your bags?
I'm not leaving.
Huh? But you have to finish school.
I'm staying on as Claire's assistant.
Indy shoots a jealous glance to Clare, then back to Betsy.
But you're my assistant.
Not anymore. I'm having my credits transferred.
Why?
Claire is a brilliant teacher.
So am I.
Yes, but I don't offer a course in seduction.
You stay out of this.
Indy, I thought you wanted me out of your life.
That was before I realized how gifted, how talented you are. I mean, I could really use you.
Especially aboard ship for 3 weeks. It gets terribly lonely.
I warn you.
Indy, I've learned a lot from you. But it's time I started concentrating on a career in anthropology instead of romance.
Certainly developed a mature attitude.
Thanks to you. You know, I always thought of you as my knight in shining armor.
Really?
But now I'll think of you as the father I never had.
Terrific.
Clare walks up to him. She extends her hand.
Dr. Jones, although your libido is questionable, your bravery and intelligence are exceptional. It has been an honor working with you.
Why, thanks.
Andy leans toward Claire as if he's going to kiss her. He raises an eyebrow, speaking in his smoothest, most suave.
You know, Claire, there's something
Yes.
I've been wanting to do
Yes.
since we first met.
Leaning forward, Andy closes his eyes to kiss Claire, but Claire moves away. Bonzo the gorilla enters the frame. Bonzo kisses Andy on the lips. Andy opens his eyes. He tries to move away, but the gorilla will not move. Wrapping her arms around Andy, the gorilla wrestles Andy to the ground. By using gorilla hand motions and grunts, Claire manages to persuade Bonzo to move away from Indiana. Andy wipes his mouth. Claire, Betsy, and Scraggy are laughing. Betsy explains to Claire.
Sorry. I guess I left her cage open and she followed us.
The ocean liner's horn sounds. It begins to drift away from the dock. Indiana turns and runs up the stairs leading to the boat. The boat is a few feet from the dock. Andy leaps onto the boat. He makes it just in time. Indiana pauses, suddenly upset. He realizes that he's forgotten the golden hoop rod. It sits on the dock at Scraggy's feet. As the ocean liner pulls away, Indy is about to scream to his friends, but Claire picks up the crate. She shrugs to Indy. The ocean liner pulls further from the dock. Indiana is helpless. He can't go back. Dissolved to interior Claire's room that evening. Claire is sound asleep in bed. Camera pans to a corner of the room. The wooden crate holding the golden hoop rod rests here. Suddenly, the box's nails begin to twist and turn as if they were being turned by invisible hands. They fall out of the box, dropping to the floor one by one. The box slowly opens, and the golden hoop rod shimmers in the moonlight. Suddenly, the staff begins to move, twisting, shrinking. It changes shape, turning into a golden eagle. The bird slowly flaps its wings and flies out of the open window into the night. Claire continues to peacefully sleep. Cut to exterior ocean, night. The full moon illuminates the night sky, shimmering across the ocean waters. Countless bright stars sparkle in the night sky. Indy's ocean liner sails across the water. The image of an eagle appears in the night sky, silhouetted against the moon. Interior ship cabin. Indiana Jones is sound asleep in his bed. The room's porthole mysteriously swings open. The golden eagle flies inside. The eagle transforms back into the golden hoop rod. The rod leans against the wall. The moonlight reflects the rod, shining into Indiana's eyes. Indy wakes. He sits up and sees the golden hoop rod. At first, he is shocked. He touches the rod, then comes upon a realization. The creaky voice of Sun Wukong fills the soundtrack.
The golden hooped rod will be a faithful friend. It is capable of 100 transformations and will always remain by your side.
Indy stands. He turns and looks out of the porthole. A dreamy, satisfied smile covers Indy's face as he stares at the stars above. Soundtrack music soars. The camera pulls back to an extremely long shot of the ship sailing across the ocean.
George.
Yes. I don't know what to say for this one. Y'all sticking around for watching. This was insane. We'll see you at the next one.